Welcome back to part 2 of Christmas Wishes in Wild Harbor by Grace Worthington. If you haven't listened to the first part, please go find that right now where you'll get chapters 1 through 9. And here we are, the conclusion to Christmas Wishes in Wild Harbor. I hope you enjoy the story.
Chapter 10, Max. The next morning, Max woke up with two things on his mind: apologizing to Mila and coffee cake. The French Press Cafe's famous blueberry Christmas coffee cake was being delivered to the shop this morning by Charlotte St. James, who made ridiculously decadent baked goods in town. He'd make a quick trip over to the shop, pick up the coffee cake, and surprise Mila with it. If the breakfast treat didn't make her forgive him, then nothing would. He grabbed his phone and sent her a quick message. Max, I'm sorry about last night. Please forgive me. You're beautiful, and I have no expectations of you to date me. I promise. P.S. How does coffee cake sound? After checking in with his coworker, he grabbed a cake box and headed to her parents' home. Usually, he worked in the mornings because making the cafe a success had been his top priority since he opened it. But since his life had been shaken up in a good way ever since Mila had entered it, work could wait. He rang her doorbell, and a stony silence followed. As he waited in the dim morning light, he realized that he'd never heard a response from Mila. The lock on the door clicked open. Diane's face registered surprise, then a smile as she opened the door. Max, this is a pleasant surprise. Please come on in. Judging from her reaction, his visit was entirely unexpected. Good morning. I'm guessing Mila never got my message. I brought over some of Charlotte's Christmas coffee cake for the family. As far as I know, she's still asleep, but I'll wake her. Diane stepped onto the stairs. Please don't. I should have called first. He was intruding. She might order him to leave if she knew what had happened between them. No, it's no trouble at all. She motioned for him to follow her up the steps. I wouldn't want you to walk into the wrong room. He wasn't about to confess that this wasn't the first time he'd been in her room. He only hoped Mila wouldn't kill him for coming so early. One look at his watch revealed what he suspected. It wasn't even 7 o'clock yet. Diane knocked gently on Mila's door. Sweetie, can I come in? There was a pause, then a muffled, croaky voice. It's too early. Diane turned to Max. Wait here for a second. She opened the door, just wide enough to squeeze through. Honey, Max is here, and he brought you something. What? Did you say something about Max? A strange alertness colored her tone. He brought breakfast, so I invited him in. Wait, what? He's here now? He could hear Mila's voice rise with surprise. Yes, right outside the door. Diane swung the door open. Mila sat in her bed, her covers pulled to her neck. Her mother was smiling, obviously pleased with revealing the surprise. Mom, I'm not even presentable. Mila tried to smooth her hair, which was rumpled and sticking out in several directions. Diane leaned toward Max. Come down when you're ready to eat. She strode off, leaving them alone. Apparently, she didn't have the same feelings that Grams did. So this is embarrassing, Mila frowned. I didn't mean to surprise you like this. By the way, what about no boys in the bedroom rule? My mom isn't worried about you when I look like this. She swept her hair over her tousled hair, which looked like she had rolled all over her bed. Not that Max was going to tell her that. Her raccoon eyes gave away the fact she had slept in her makeup. She looked ridiculous and enticing at the same time. I wanted to bring over coffee cake as a peace treaty. I wasn't intending to stay. He sat on the edge of her bed and handed her the box. Did you expect me to eat all of this? Her eyes widened. It's for your whole family. I figured I can still get on their good side, even if I'm not on yours. She still had the covers of her comforter pulled up around her like armor. My mom doesn't know a stranger, Max. She invited the mailman into our house without hesitation. She smoothed her hair around one shoulder. Sorry if I'm a little scary looking. You're actually pretty cute, even with your hair sticking out. She stuck her tongue out at him, and he saw a younger, more carefree version of the girl who prided herself on appearing put together at all times. Well, you have to stay now. My mom won't let you leave until you've eaten some eggs and bacon with the coffee cake. But don't think I'm letting you off the hook for last night. I was hoping you'd let me apologize. I persuaded you into making a decision, and the entire night went terribly wrong. Please forgive me. Something flashed across Mila's face, like she wanted to say something, but was struggling to find the words. Max touched her hand. Can I see you while you're still here? No expectations, no pressure. I promise. A sleepy smile stretched across her face. I'd like that. Let me get dressed, and then I'll join you downstairs. She nudged him off her bed, then grabbed his elbow before he scooted away. Oh, hey, do you have plans to get a Christmas tree yet? No. I'm surprised my mom hasn't invited you to our annual Christmas tree outing yet. We're going to do the tree farm today, a family tradition. You mean you don't just buy a fake pre-lit tree like everyone else? Of course not. This is a Wild Harbor tradition. Just wear your warmest flannel and bring a bow saw. I don't even have a bow saw. Please don't tell me you've never cut a tree. He laughed. I haven't. Is this some kind of Sutton family test I need to pass? According to my dad? Yes. But don't worry. You brought coffee cake, so that will put you on his good side. There's one more thing I need to ask. He ran his hand through his hair. He wanted to know where they stood about the date. It's about the wedding on Saturday. His voice dropped off. He wanted to go with her more than anything else, but now he felt like he was wobbling on a tightrope. I wasn't sure after everything that happened. I would be honored to have you go. A shadow flitted across her face, like clouds over a July sky. It's just, you still want me to go? He couldn't stop himself. The words tumbled out of him like spilled milk. Dismay spread across her face. She exhaled hard. Max, there's something I need to tell you. Just then, Sophie burst into the room. Oh, Max! I didn't know you were here! Sophie wrapped her bathrobe around her tighter, then shifted her gaze to Mila as if to ask, what is he doing here? No, it's fine. Mila held up the breakfast treat. He brought coffee cake. The concern vanished from Sophie's face. Whatever she was about to say could wait. Oh, perfect! Sophie snagged the cake from Mila's hands. You guys all ready for the wedding? I told Grams that Max was coming with you. She was thrilled. Mila's expression melted into a frown. You did what? I thought she already knew, but she said you hadn't told her. I wanted to surprise her. Mila's tone was like the edge of a knife blade, sharp and prickly. I'm sorry. It slipped. Sophie shrugged. Mila rubbed her forehead, kneading an unseen pain. It wasn't how I wanted Grams to find out, but I'll deal with it. Her sister shrugged, then clicked the door shut. Max treaded carefully. So, what was that about? Oh, it's nothing. Her eyes seemed far away, like she was thinking of something. You still okay with this? He couldn't quite figure it out, but something about her seemed off. The glow in her eyes dimmed, snuffed out by some distant, ominous concern. She nodded, but he didn't believe it. Her reluctance hung in the air between them, sucking oxygen from the room. There was a reason she didn't want Thelma to know about him. Had he done something wrong? Did she think Thelma wouldn't approve? Her face gave nothing away. It was like a shield blocking the light. He lifted her chin with his hand, trying to find a way in. Her eyelids fluttered in response. This was supposed to be fun, remember? he whispered. A light sparked in her eyes. All fun and no romance, right? Her mouth jerked up in one corner, like she was attempting to smile, but an undercurrent of sadness tinged the edges. If that's what you want. He prayed it wasn't. She didn't respond, leaving the unanswered question hanging between them. Max was sitting at the dining room table with a hot cup of coffee when Mila came downstairs, dressed in a sweater and jeans, her hair neatly brushed. She didn't have any makeup on, but her face was freshly scrubbed and her cheeks glowed. Finally, we can eat, Sophie teased. The princess is here. Mila slugged her sister in her arm as she sat down next to Max. I got ready faster than you usually do. It takes time to look good. Sophie ran her fingers through her hair. Plus, I'm not used to sharing a bathroom with anyone. I live alone, remember? Max had just learned that Sophie was home for Christmas before she headed back to her job in upstate New York. The Suttons were delighted to have both their daughters in their nest, even if it was temporary. Max, we hope you will join us today at the tree farm. Diane served the coffee cake, handing Max a piece first. We won't be too hard on you today, Brian added, as long as you can cut a tree. You'll fit in with the Sutton family. Told you, Mila whispered as Diane passed Brian a piece of cake. This is divine. Sophie dug into her cake. Please marry him, Mila. I want this every time I'm home. Mila's cheeks flushed warm. You can buy it at the cafe. Max took a bite. We'll sell out by noon. Charlotte can't keep up with the orders this year. Diane passed the eggs, bacon, and potatoes, filling plates like it was her duty to stuff them full, like farmhands. Max wasn't used to a big breakfast, if he ate breakfast at all. Sometimes he just drank a cup of coffee while he worked. He remembered the occasional big breakfast with his family when he was young, but when his mother had moved out, Dad had let the boys eat whatever they wanted. After that, every Saturday morning was the same. The boys watched cartoons while gorging on sugary cereal loaded with colorful marshmallows. He hadn't realized how much he missed a big family breakfast until Brian passed the coffee cake around for seconds. He listened to the chatter of conversation as Diane scooped another round of potato casserole. He wondered how much he had missed growing up with a single dad who largely let the boys run wild. No family Christmas traditions, no tree cutting, no lights outside or stockings strung across the fireplace. All that had died the day his family crumbled when he was 13. Dad's angry outbursts and excessive drinking led massive holes in Max's past, things he couldn't reveal to anyone. No wonder Max couldn't wait to leave home after dealing with it for years. Escaping his past was easier than coping with it. After college, Max had tried several entrepreneurial adventures and learned how to run a business. He'd finally found success with investment properties, but he couldn't make up for his lack of family. His brother had moved closer to their dad to take care of him, but he never bothered keeping in touch unless he wanted something. His mother, who was noticeably absent from his life after she left, called occasionally, but Max avoided her broken record messages that pleaded, Max, this is your mom. Can you call, please? No. How could he forgive her for leaving? It had left them all broken in a way that nobody could fix, not even Max. Will you join us today? Diane startled Max back to the present. It doesn't matter if you've never cut a tree. Brian will show you. It's time you experienced a Wild Harbor family Christmas tradition. This one is fully endorsed by Mila, too. Sophie sat back in her chair. What does that mean? Mila set down her fork. You haven't exactly hidden your feelings about the town's winter festival and how it's ruining Wild Harbor. She turned to Max. I'm in favor of the festival, so whatever Mila says about your plans, don't listen to her. Oh, thanks, sis, Mila countered. For your information, we've talked about the festival, and Max has turned me into a reluctant convert." "A convert, eh? He proved to you he's not making a pile of money off the festival?" Sophie had a bluntness that Mila tried to temper with a look. "It's not that I'm against the winter festival," Mila argued. "I don't want Wild Harbor to lose its character, like those big beach towns that get overrun by cheap souvenir shops. Wild Harbor needs to embrace what makes it special." "I think Max is inspiring us all to love Christmas a little more." Diane passed around the eggs and bacon for one more round. "And it wouldn't be Christmas without a stop at the tree farm." "An artificial tree is not even an option," Sophie reasoned. "The Sutton family has a motto: go big or go home. I don't understand those people who don't set up a tree." Mila cleared her throat and gave Max a side eye. "Leave while you can, Max, before they find out." "Find out what?" Sophie wasn't about to let Max off the hook. Max put his napkin on his plate. He might as well confess. "I don't have a tree." "Like, not even a tiny one?" Sophie's eyes looked like they might pop out of her head. Apparently, he had broken some unspoken law of holiday cheer. "Not even one decoration." Mila was grinning as she plucked her last bite of bacon. Sophie gasped and covered her face. "You've ruined my entire perception of you as our Christmas hero." He gave Mila a look. "Thanks for the support." Guilty as charged. "We need to fix that." Sophie shook her head. "Before anyone finds out. It's not too late." Sophie sipped her juice. "By the way, did you hear the news? Megan got engaged last night." Diane smiled. "Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. A wedding and an engagement in the same week." There was a tense pause as Mila headed to the kitchen. Max got up to follow her. "Everything okay?" She seemed unusually quiet. "Yeah, I'm fine. I just hate when Mom brings up anything about a wedding. I'm happy for Megan, but I know Mom always thinks of my wedding and what might have been." She shook her head. "At least you've charmed my family. The festival is a big hit with them." "Unless I can charm you, it doesn't matter." He moved to where she was rinsing dishes in the sink. The light from the window caught the high ridges of her cheekbones. "Like you said, I don't live here anymore, so why should I care? It's still your home." He leaned his back against the counter so he could see Mila's face. He sensed she was distancing herself. "Your family has traditions, and you don't want someone coming in and ruining them." "You're not ruining things. Everything is changing. People are getting married. The town is growing. Is it wrong that I wish things would stay like they were when I was a girl?" "No. But you know what might help that." "What?" "Staying." He shook the thought away, afraid to say the words. He didn't want to put pressure on her. Not yet. Understanding that it's unfair to expect the town won't ever change. Things change. People get married. It's part of life. I realize that. She wiped her hands on a towel. But I don't have to like it. Here's my promise to you. I will try to fight for those things that make Wild Harbor special. He took her hands. For you. You do that? Of course. After all, I'm willing to hang out with your family at a tree farm, right? Sorry to out you like that, but I knew my sister would freak. Plus, I wanted to see you squirm. She gave him a devious smile. Are you ready to cut down some trees? Wait, did you say trees, as in plural? She nodded. We're cutting one for you. As the founder of the Winter Festival, you're not getting out of decorating for Christmas. What do you think of this one? Brian stepped next to a 7-foot fir that curved awkwardly at the bottom. Sophie squatted down to examine the trunk. It looks crooked to me. Come over here. This one looks pretty good. Diane was hidden behind a cluster of trees a few rows away. Mila linked her arm through Max's and pulled him toward the voice. They had looked at 6 different trees and still had yet to find the perfect one. As they zigzagged through a maze of trees, Mila leaned into his body for warmth. I'm freezing my tail off out here. Are you having fun? I am, but I didn't know how hard it was to find the perfect tree. She grabbed his gloved hand and pulled him toward a squat, full-bodied fir for a quick inspection. It doesn't help that my family has different ideas about what perfection is. If we weren't so picky, we'd find one a lot sooner. In this private spot, he wanted to kiss her. But there was no way he was going to take a chance with her dad around. Plus, he wasn't sure she'd even let him. After their disagreement last night, everything was up in the air. The only reason she seemed to touch him now was because she was cold. Footsteps trudged down a row next to them as Brian came around the tree and almost walked into them. Where's Mom? Mila shrugged. Over here! Mom's muffled voice called out. They found her standing next to a gigantic tree with a straight trunk and full body. Almost too perfect to be true. That one is a beauty. Brian knelt down. But it's a little big, don't you think? Maybe we should check out some more first. Remember the year we left one magnificent tree to find 40 duds? Sophia countered. We lost the first tree because we couldn't come to a consensus. We ended up buying that horrible tree with a gaping hole in the side. Max, what do you say? Is this too big? Brian inspected the trunk. Looks good to me, but I've never actually bought one. You've never had a tree? Diane asked incredulously. We had one before my mom and Dad divorced, but after that, Dad didn't bother decorating for Christmas. Diane squeezed his elbow. I'm glad we get the honor of picking out your first tree with you. Oh no, this is your tree, not mine. Max stepped away. Of course not, honey. You get this one. There are plenty of others. Brian handed him a saw. We'll keep looking for ours. The rest of the family started roaming down the adjacent rows, looking for their next tree, leaving Max and Mila alone. It'll be beautiful in your apartment. Mila brushed her hands across the prickly needles. Max knelt and chiseled away at the base. It's not like it's an enormous trunk, but there is something satisfying about this. His years at home were absent from many father-son activities. He'd never learned to use a saw properly, or any other tools. He had to watch videos on the internet to figure things out, another way his father had failed him. The saw sliced an even cut through the trunk as Mila held it steady. After some effort, the tree toppled to the ground. Success. Max straightened. Although I don't know what I'll put on it, I don't own decorations. My mom has plenty. She doesn't use in the attic. I'm just glad we can get out of the cold now. I'm freezing, and you're like a furnace. She wrapped her arms around him, trying to absorb some of his warmth. Her sudden embrace surprised him, but he instantly leaned into it, burying his nose in her hair. If she was trying to mess with him, she was doing a good job of it. You know, you can come to my place and just flip a switch on my gas fireplace, and the heat is instant. She frowned. That's cheating. No, it's not. Once you try it, you'll never go back. How about as soon as my family finds their tree, we head to your place? We can play Christmas music, light a fire, and you can tell me about your childhood Christmas memories. I know nothing about your family. Max pulled away from Mila's arms. There's nothing to tell, really. My childhood wasn't like yours. He didn't want to talk about his past. It was easy to pretend it didn't exist. Mila wrapped her arms around her body and shivered. Where do they live now? Do you have any siblings? One older brother and a younger sister who passed away when I was a kid. Max's fingers clenched around the saw. Max, I didn't know that. I'm so sorry. It was a long time ago. He grabbed the trunk of the fallen tree and lugged it away from her. I don't keep in touch with my family now, he mumbled over his shoulder. But why not? She jogged to catch up with him. They're your family. He ignored her and focused on pulling the tree to the truck. Max, why won't you answer me? He could hear the bitter voice of his father in his head. Everyone leaves you eventually, son. He could see his mom's face of stone the day she left, bitter tears streaming down her cheeks as she told Dad, You've ruined everything. Then she slammed the door and left. Max had grown up believing that love meant hurt. Love meant being left alone. Love hadn't been enough to keep his mom from abandoning them. How was that for an explanation? He plowed forward. My dad lives in Flint, near where we grew up. My mom lives in Colorado now. I don't talk to her or my brother much. Why don't you talk to them? It's complicated. Max plowed ahead, trying to escape her questions. They've made their decision, and I've made mine. That part of my life is over. He wasn't ready to explain his brother's betrayal and how that had severed their relationship. After Mom had left, Caleb had been the only family he'd had left, until that, too, had slipped away. The lesson was not lost on him. The people he loved would always disappoint him. Everyone eventually leaves you, son. Mila scrambled to catch up and pulled him to a stop. I'm sorry, Max. You don't have to talk about it, but I want to understand you more. Couldn't things change? She searched his face. No, they won't. Max's voice was hard as stone. I don't want to think about it anymore. He turned away as she reached for his arm. Max, would you stop teasing me? Touching my arm, leaning into me. You seriously don't know what you're doing to me, do you? He turned and blew out of there, stepping between trees, stretching the distance between them like a desert road. Hope was a false dream. Hope was a deadly arrow. His father's words had stolen everything from him.
Chapter 11. Mila. Mila pulled on a lovely red satin dress for the wedding and slid her arms behind her back. Her fingers plucked the zipper and tugged. It stuck at first, and she pulled again. Finally, the zipper caught and slid in an effortless, fluid line up her back, the same way Max's hands gently slipped across her spine like a current. She twisted her body in the mirror, catching her dazzling reflection. She grasped a diamond earring and secured the back, but her mind was still replaying what had happened yesterday. 1 minute she had wrapped her arms around Max, and the next he'd walked away, a dark cloud hovering over his mood. Her mom peeked around the door. You ready to go? Max just pulled up. A tiny, nervous sigh escaped her mother's lips. She wanted things between Mila and Max to work out. She didn't have to say it. Hope was written all over her face. A car door slammed outside. Her mom rushed to get the door. The wedding date. She should call Grams and tell her the deal was off. A doorbell chimed downstairs. Her fingers hovered over her phone screen and then flicked the call away. She tossed the phone on the bed. She'd see Grams tonight and pull her aside privately. Why ruin things now? When she'd made the deal, she never considered what would happen if she fell for her date. Her analytical nature had failed to conceive of a hypothetical situation like love. She couldn't imagine this change of heart when she was sprawled on the floor of her office, a pile of overdue bills in her lap. Now the guilt was killing her. His warning yesterday had split her in two. You seriously don't know what you're doing to me, do you? He'd looked shaken. It was hard to argue with reality. It was safer if she stayed away after tonight and ignored this chemistry between them. He'd forget about her as soon as she left town. Animated voices rose up the steps like drifting smoke. Mila slipped on her heels and took one last look in the mirror. She sprayed perfume on the curve of her neck and gave herself a pep talk. Her ankles wobbled as she descended the steps. She was making a show-stopping entrance, dazzling in her red dress, except this wasn't her moment. This wasn't her wedding. Everything would fall apart after tonight. Max glanced up the steps and then took a second look. If it had been any other time, Mila would have absorbed that energy and radiated it back like sunlight. But tonight, she could barely muster the courage to stand in front of him. Little liar. No one could make her feel worse than her own conscience. She prayed he'd forgive her for hiding the truth. But if the tables were turned, would she be able to extend the same grace to him? "Are you ready?" He held out her coat as she slipped her arms into the sleeves. His fingers grazed her bare shoulders. She swallowed hard. "Yes." Her voice was low and quiet as her eyes cut to her parents. "See you at the wedding." Mom beamed at Max. Mila could only imagine that she was secretly imagining a budding romance, a lavish wedding, a van full of grandchildren. Her parents' hopes and dreams snowballed in front of her. They wanted so badly to thread the pieces of Mila's life back together after her breakup with Jake. Max climbed into the car and fingered his keychain, lost in thought. "About yesterday." He couldn't seem to get the words out. "Max, I'm sorry about what happened." "No, it's my fault. I'm sorry for how I reacted." "I won't pressure you to talk about your family, and I'll stay away from now on." She held her hands up. "It's safer that way." "Safer?" He narrowed his eyes. "For both of us." Her pulse was elevated just sitting next to him. When it came to Max Malone, safe was what she needed. "I'm not sure I like playing it safe." He put one hand under her chin and stroked his finger across her jaw. "Especially when you're this stunning. Too bad I have to get you there early to check the bride's dress. Otherwise, I'd steal you away." "To where?" For someone who just committed to staying away, she was entertaining dangerous thoughts. "I don't know, but I hate to share you with everyone tonight." He winked as the engine roared to life. When they arrived, Max waited in the foyer as she knocked on the door of the ladies' dressing area. "I shouldn't be long." "Take your time." He stretched out on the bench, his long body revealing lean muscle under his suit. Megan's face peeked out the door. "Wait until you see her. Lily looks amazing." Lily stood in the mirror, her face dewy and glowing, her dress reflecting the light like a prism in a sunlit window. As Lily smoothed her hands over the floor-length lace and chiffon gown, Cassidy shook open the long train like a parachute, spreading it behind her sister as it settled to the ground. Her mother gasped and dabbed her eyes, a tissue clasp between her fingers. She was already crying, and the ceremony hadn't even started. "This dress fits like it was made for you." "I have Mila to thank for that." Lily nodded toward her friend. The strapless gown had a fitted, vintage-inspired embroidery and beadwork bodice and a silk chiffon skirt. Becky's floor-length veil capped the gown, the perfect pairing of old and new. "Everything about you is extraordinary." Megan wrapped her arm around the bride's waist as the girls admired each other in the mirror. "Don't even get me started." Lily nestled her head against Meg's shoulder. "Once the tears start, they won't stop." "Here, do you want a tissue?" Her mom pulled one from her purse. "Where am I going to put that?" Lily held her hand out. "In my bra?" "You wouldn't be the first." Her mom laughed as Lily dabbed her eyes so she wouldn't mess up her makeup. "My beautiful daughters." She held out her arms and gathered all three girls close. "This is the beginning of so many things. Lily getting married, Megan making wedding plans." She turned to her youngest daughter. "Next, it will be you, Cassidy." "Mom, it's going to be a while. I don't even have a boyfriend." Cassidy shook her long blonde locks. Megan flashed the diamond on her finger. That means nothing. Finn was the last guy I thought I'd ever date. Surprises happen. A knock quietly sounded at the door as Matt stuck his head inside. Everyone dressed and ready. The church is almost full, and Dad is eager to see the bride. This was a sacred moment, the chance for father and daughter to have a private moment. Mila slipped out unnoticed by the family. Her job here was done. Max rose as she approached. You're frowning, he teased, then stroked a finger across her brow to smooth the wrinkles. You don't have to stand for me. She tried to push his strong shoulders down, but he wouldn't budge. Of course I will. My mama taught me manners. He almost seemed offended that she'd asked him not to. He offered his arm to her, a silent request to escort her into the sanctuary. She linked her hand through his. He was so perfect, she was almost fuming. Why did she have to mess up everything with such a nice guy? She could almost taste the acid in her mouth. Mila, is that you? A voice chirped from behind her. Grams. She dropped Max's arm and spun on the heel of her stiletto. This wasn't the way she wanted to face her grandmother. Not right before the ceremony. Grams's eyes swept over Max in his suit. You did good picking this guy. She winked at Max. A knowing look flashed across her face as she wiggled her eyebrows at Mila. Max shook his head and laughed. The joy in it was like a shower of confetti. She didn't exactly pick me. Max put his hands in his pocket. I'd say the agreement was mutual. His eyes slid to hers, a private joke between them. Mila wanted to pull Max into the sanctuary. If he gave away their fake dating arrangement and Grams caught wind of it, she'd out her immediately. Her grandmother never held back her tongue. It was like letting loose a hurricane. That was convenient for you, Mila. Grams gave her granddaughter a pat on the arm. Her body stiffened in response. Two secrets trapped her, keeping her date from finding out about Grams's offer of money and hiding Max's fake date arrangement. Her house of cards was about to fall. Grams waggled her finger at Max. Just don't get too frisky on the dance floor. Mila coughed in embarrassment as Max howled with laughter. Grams was only teasing, but it twisted Mila's insides. She needed to get her grandmother seated before she accidentally let Max know about the money riding on this date. Max put his hand in between Mila's shoulder blades, sending a shooting spark down her spine. His touch was like a laser bolt of energy. Thelma, I'm not even sure I want to know what that means, but I can assure you that I'm a gentleman. Of course you are. I just wish Mila would have arranged a date as handsome for me. Thelma opened her small fake alligator purse with a metal clasp and dug around inside. Mila prayed she wouldn't pull out a check in front of Max. Her wrinkled lips formed a perfect vowel and her expression shifted and she waved her hand in the air. Never mind, I'll take care of it later. Don't want to miss the ceremony. She tottered past them into the sanctuary, her eyes scanning the crowd as she looked for a seat. Mila released her breath like a balloon with a tiny hole. Too close. If her grandmother was going to do something rash like offer her money tonight, she needed time to explain things to Max. When she had agreed to Grams's deal, she'd been imagining some faceless man, the type who wouldn't mind a free meal in exchange for a date. A man who wouldn't light up a single nerve in her body, a boring but tolerable guy, someone completely forgettable. Then Max had entered with his disarming steel gaze and a smile that made her legs weak. She'd never thought she would actually get this tangled up in her feelings for him. He was a live wire, shooting sparks every time their eyes met. Danger wrapped in a baby soft t-shirt, a firebrand sizzling on the surface of her skin. In the coming months, she'd replay these dates over in her mind like some kind of stalker, except she wasn't a stalker at all. She just kept rewinding every fatal flaw she'd made in this disastrous relationship. Her biggest one? Agreeing to Grams's deal. Her second one? Falling for a man before she was ready to trust again. The whole thing was a train wreck. She couldn't let Max think she had used him as her date to keep her shop afloat, but confessing the truth made her want to sprint to the car. She'd speed back to Chicago and never look back. Resolve glued her feet to the floor. She'd look like a crazy person if she ran out now. She needed to get through this wedding first, sit as far away from Grams as possible, and avoid any contact for the rest of the night. Should we sit down? Mila grabbed Max's arm, dragging him away from the aisle where Grams sat. She scanned the sanctuary like a map and chose the opposite corner. She sank down in the pew without asking if he'd like a different view. He followed without comment because that's the type of date Max was, along for the ride. The string quartet soared as the ceremony unfolded like a Christmas dream, every bridesmaid draped in brilliant deep red, contrasting with the bride's winter white dress that shimmered in the candlelight. The way Lily and Alex looked at each other nearly undid Mila. Her heart felt wrung out until it was an empty shell. She willed the tears to stop, but they kept leaking from her eyes. She smeared her makeup with a tissue. What was wrong with her? Love seemed like such a dazzling thing, an illuminated vision that was blinding and consuming her at the same time. After the ceremony, the crowd drifted over to a gorgeous reception hall that looked out over the water. Guests mingled around tables, and Mila found herself surrounded by people, drilling her with questions about her shop in Chicago, or cornering Max, asking about his development plans. They pinwheeled through the crowd, losing each other but waving from across the room, separated by what felt like miles of people. When the MC announced dinner, they shuttled off toward round tables with elaborate floral displays. She dreaded being pinned to a table with her Grams and prayed she was not. A hand found her back, and she turned, startled by the feel of someone's palm on her bare skin. Max. A zing of energy shot through the space between her shoulder blades. His hand was like fire on her flesh. Fancy meeting you here, he joked with a straight face. They'd been separated for only a half hour, but it felt like days. How did he wreck her with a touch? Do you have a date tonight? She teased back, leaning against the wall next to a potted plant. In this corner of the ballroom, she'd found a quiet little paradise. He played along. She left me behind, even though I struck a deal with her. Haven't seen her since. I want my money back. Pity. Maybe I can fill in. You'll do, all right. He winked. His flirting was dangerous, leaving her heart twisting inside out. Why did he have to be so charming? She cleared her throat, ready to confront the guilt that was slowly strangling her. Max, about that deal we made. Yes? His eyes flicked to hers, and she suddenly felt exposed, like a fraud. He wouldn't look at her the same anymore once he knew the truth. That razzle-dazzle magic he did on her heart would sizzle out like a wet towel over a match. I don't want you to feel obligated to be with me tonight. The agreement we made, you can call it off. The doubt clouded his eyes. Do you not want me to be your date? Oh, no. She took a step toward him, and her drink splattered across the arm of his suit coat. I'm sorry. She dabbed a few spots of iced tea from his jacket with her napkin. It's just that, she swallowed hard. Her eyes lifted to his steel blue gaze, the color of the sky after a storm, the blue spark of electricity. She never wanted to forget the shade that unraveled her from within. Her heart unspooled like cotton. Mila, a voice interrupted before she could get the words out. Edna Long held a paper with a diagram of tables. As the unofficial town matron, she had volunteered to help with coordinating the wedding and reception, a job she relished. You're at our table with your family, and it's time to start. She took Mila's elbow and steered her toward the table with Grams, Sophie, and her parents. Her dad waved like a desperate motorist stranded on the side of the highway. Normally, this table would have been an easy arrangement of familiar people, but her body stiffened as she saw the only chairs left were next to Grams. It was too late to change, and she'd have to force the conversation away from any talk of dating. With her Grams, that might be next to impossible. Don't you two look like a perfect couple? Edna's red lips suppressed a smile as she swished her lemonade around with a straw, the ice clinking against the glass. Thelma took a swig of iced tea and grimaced at the glass. I bet money that Mila catches the bouquet. She plucked a packet of sweetener and dumped it in her tea. Mila's body prickled with heat. I don't think I want to catch the bouquet. Her voice was as blunt as a dull file. She needed to steer this topic away from marriage. That subject was like stepping onto a minefield. Her fingers circled the top of her glass. Doesn't Lily look extraordinary? Like a younger version of Becky Woods. Edna clinked her ice some more. She'd seen so many weddings through the years. Mom snagged a dinner roll and broke it in half, then slathered a dollop of butter on top. Her dress was perfect, Mila. I know how much she appreciated you coming home for this. How is the shop doing? Edna dug into a plate of chicken, surrounded by tiny round potatoes the size of golf balls. Oh, it's an adventure. Mila zeroed in on her plate as she sliced chicken. Stab, slice, repeat. A mist of sweat broke out across her forehead. Chicago is mighty expensive. Edna pierced her potato with her fork and held it dangling mid-air. Please let this conversation die, or I might have to. Mila's mouth felt full of gritty sand. It is. She scooped up her water and downed half a glass before she choked on the last swallow. As she sputtered, Grams walloped her back. I'm fine, she croaked. She wasn't fine. This whole charade was getting to her. Maybe if she choked to death, she could veer the conversation away from her shop. A tap on the shoulder jolted her back to the present. It was Cassidy, her long blonde curls cascading down her back, her lips set in a red stain. Cassidy should have been swept away by some gorgeous guy long ago. Even though Wild Harbor wasn't a big town, she'd always turned heads. She could have any guy she wanted. Lily asked to have you join us for a picture. Would you mind? She grinned, and a dimple on her left cheek deepened. Mila had always envied Cassidy's single, adorable dimple. Not at all. She scooted her chair back and dropped her red napkin next to her half-eaten plate. She wasn't hungry today, anyway. Guilt had dulled her appetite. Excuse me, I'll be back in a few minutes. She fell into step next to Cassidy and only looked back once. Edna was talking, her hands flapping around like wings. They headed to the corner of the room where Megan, Lily, and Aspen were already posing for the photographer. Cass pulled on her arm as they fell into place next to the other girls. Max and you are really lovely together. She didn't bother answering. If she glanced at her friend now, Cass would read her feelings like it was imprinted across her forehead. Mila, is something wrong? Concern tinged Cassidy's whisper. Mila locked onto the camera and held her pose. We're not together, not that way. She tilted her chin toward the photographer. Her smile froze. Stop sabotaging yourself. He's nice, and I can tell by how he looks at you that there's something there. She pinched Mila's side. Ow, Mila blurted out at the shock of her friend's fingernails. The photographer snapped a picture. Oh, great. That's going to be a wonderful picture of me making a hideous face. They'll delete it. Maybe you should come home on weekends. Cassidy pasted on a smile and held her pose again. I'm not sure Max will want to see me after the holidays. A blinding light exploded and Mila blinked. Cass turned to Mila, her smooth brow etched with wrinkles. You can't say that. You don't know. Mila's gaze cut to Max. Grams had scooted closer to her date and was telling him an animated story. Max was absorbed, a sponge soaking up Thelma's every word. No one else at the table seemed to listen. They were all in their own worlds. Conversations spinning like planets orbiting across solar systems. One tiny catastrophic shift in the universe, and everything would be thrown off course. Max frowned, and his eyes swept over to Mila for a brief second. Dismay spread across his face. Mila didn't need to ask Grams what she had told him. The second she saw his look, she knew. Mila's world tilted like half of the floor had just collapsed. She stumbled forward, the room spinning. Max stood quickly and headed toward the exit. Mila rushed to stop him, zigzagging between tables and servers like an obstacle course, almost causing one poor busboy to drop an entire tray of dirty plates. Max wasn't supposed to find out this way. She had to reach him before he left, if only to explain her side of the story before her world spun out of control. Max! Her voice sounded ragged, like threads being pulled out by desperation. Max paced the sidewalk, refusing to turn her way. She could tell by the slump of his shoulders that something was wrong. I want to explain. Her lungs burned in the frozen air. He swiveled to face her. Anger flashed across his expression. Thelma already told me. About? She needed to hear how bad it was. All the sordid details. Grams wasn't one to leave anything out. She told me she agreed to give you money if you found a date for the wedding. It was a financial arrangement. I thought this was becoming something more. So, congratulations on your performance, Mila. You had me totally fooled. He bolted forward, but she grabbed his coat sleeve, urging him to stay. She swung around, orbiting him like the sun. He had always pulled her in this way. No, wait, you need to hear me out. She grasped his hand, desperate to keep him here. I've already heard everything. I need to know. He pulled his hand back. When we made this agreement, I didn't even know you. It seemed like a mutual arrangement. You wanted Lexi off your back. He frowned. I thought you wanted people to know you were over Jake. It seemed like an even exchange. Her heart withered at the disdain in his voice. It's true I wanted people to think that. We both had our reasons. I didn't bring up Graham's offer because I didn't think it would go this far. I thought we were going out for one date. Then why didn't you tell me later, after I asked you out for real? I wanted to. My plan was to tell you tonight, after I pulled Graham's aside to tell her the deal was off. But I lost my nerve. I thought you'd despise me if I told you about the money. You'd believe I was using you. You were using me, Mila. His voice erupted like an angry hiss. I could say the same of you. She matched his body position. Hands on hips, chin raised, eyes narrowed. That's not what tonight was, at least not for me. Hasn't it been convenient that you've had a date to all these events? I've been an easy fill-in for you, a substitute for an actual relationship. Come on, Max. It's not like you're totally innocent here. You were never a substitute. His laser blue eyes were pinning her down, cutting her into pieces. I asked you out because I wanted something more between us. Oh. Her tongue stuck to the roof of her mouth. I thought you wanted me to keep my distance, remember? He choked out a sarcastic half-laugh and sat on a bench. I don't think you fully understood what I meant. Then explain it, because you've never told me how you really feel. You're wrong. I've told you every chance I could. There is nothing I wouldn't do for you. His head slid down as he covered his face with his hands. What an idiot I am. If he'd struck her, she couldn't have hurt more. Max, you think I did this on purpose to hurt you? That was never my intent. You don't know how I feel about you. She inched down to him and prayed he wouldn't walk away. He stared hard at her, his blue eyes dark. Tell me the truth then. How do you feel about me? She grabbed the bench so he wouldn't see her hands shake. She was about to free fall off a cliff. If she didn't tell him now, she might lose him forever. Scared that if I let you into my world, you'd become it. She waited to see if he would reject her for good. She caught a flicker in his expression, a desperate, dying spark. He reached his hand to her arm and slid it from elbow to wrist. Then he wrapped her fingers in his. The spark flared with heat. I don't understand why you didn't just tell me. I was afraid you wouldn't believe me. You had me cornered. He lifted his eyebrows. Okay, I had myself cornered. I'm the idiot here, not you. She slumped back on the bench. She'd probably lost Max for good. There was no use hiding anything from him now. Just so you know, I'm not taking Grams's money. Why didn't you tell me you were in financial trouble? And make myself look like even more of an idiot? No, thank you. I've already endured the humiliation of closing my shop once. If I close in Chicago, at least it's a big enough city that no one would notice. But I can't come home with my tail between my legs. Not again. His lips tightened. Why not? I'd start over somewhere else, even if that meant working at a truck stop again. An image twisted inside her brain from college. Truckers catcalling her on the job. She couldn't go back to that dismal prospect. She'd paper the city with job applications instead and cling to the phone, hoping for a break. I'd take you any time at the French press. His face spread into a soft grin. He was flirting with her, and she couldn't tear her eyes away from him. Free coffee and a lot of time with yours truly. Tempting. If I get desperate, I'll find you. She licked her lips. His eyes dropped to them. I'll be waiting for your call. The way he looked at her now made her want to accept the invitation. He was playing it safe, trying to let her down easy. She bit her lip, not ready to say goodbye. She'd never let him go if she didn't do it now. Well, it was nice getting to know you, Max. She held her hand out, waiting for him to shake it. Nice? He pushed her hand away. You deserve more than a handshake. He cupped her face in his hand, leaned forward, and planted a kiss on her cheek. It was warm and soft. Not a goodbye kiss, but an invitation. If she hadn't just ruined their relationship, she'd say yes to whatever he was offering her. She leaned back, entranced by the warmth radiating on her cheek. I guess this is it. She wasn't good at leaving. Her legs stuck to the bench. Can we start over? What do you mean? Hi, I'm Max. He put his hand out. What was this game? She swatted his hand away. Someone told me you deserve more than a handshake. His mouth twitched, but he kept a straight face. But I don't even know your name. His face was serious while his eyes danced with pleasure. Max, stop. She gave him a tiny shove. That's my name. What's yours? He was forcing her to role play, a chance to rewind time and start over. I'm Mila. Pleased to meet you. Mila. He rolled the word in his mouth like he was savoring it. Beautiful. He took her hand and kissed the back of it. The current of his touch spread along the length of her arm. She felt like she was glowing as brightly as an Edison bulb. Does this mean you don't hate me forever? Her tone was filled with wonder and confusion. She silently pleaded for him to say no. How could I hate you? We've only just met. He took her hands in his and dropped a smile that nearly undid her. So this was what forgiveness felt like. He wrapped his hand around her bare shoulder as she leaned into the curve of his arm. They fit together perfectly. Mila, would you go out with me sometime? No strings attached. He rested his cheek against her hair as the stars showered them with light. Yes. She followed his gaze to the burning orbs above. No strings attached.
Chapter 12. Max. Max had just finished grinding coffee beans when a familiar voice echoed a morning greeting across the cafe. A rich, robust scent, combined with nutty, aromatic middle notes, permeated the room. It was a smell Max never tired of, the first scent of morning. Joshua was always the first customer on weekdays, grabbing his coffee before he disappeared for the morning. Sometimes he went fishing, other days to his cabin on the lake. Joshua's weathered hands fiddled with a small leather wallet, falling apart at the seams. He frequently brought in the strangest items from his salvage shop: pocket watches and old silverware, cracked glass trinkets, and old hinges from doors. Where he got them, Max didn't have a clue. But the man seemed to have this uncanny knack for knowing how to fix things, and he relished showing Max his latest restoration. But even more disconcerting was his ability to read Max, as if he could see under the surface of his skin, like he was transparent. Max didn't have to tell Joshua when something was bothering him, when the ugly threads from his past were snaking through him again. Joshua just knew. "Coffee smells good." Joshua swept his fingers over the wallet, the pads of his fingers smoothing the scratched leather. As Joshua reached for a cup, a deep scar across his wrist peeked out beyond his shirt sleeve. It was jagged and puckered, an old injury that had healed over, leaving behind the remnants of a painful wound. Max looked away. Why was ugliness so painful to witness? He focused on filling Joshua's cup, but his eyes flicked back to the scar. "You never told me what happened to your wrist." Joshua adjusted his sleeve to cover it. "That's a story for another day." His lips turned up at the corners. "I brought you something I think you'll find interesting." He tossed the wallet on the counter. "It's your father's." "How did you know my dad?" Max picked up the wallet and turned it over in his fingers. It didn't look worth keeping, but something about it seemed familiar. "I don't. His name is on it." "You found my dad's old wallet?" Max slid the cup across the counter. "In a bin of castaways. Most of it was junk until I found that. Thought you could take it to your dad." "I don't see my dad anymore." Max's tone was sharp, like a voice he once knew, a person he had blocked from his mind. "Is that so?" Joshua tipped his cup. "Pass it along to someone else in your family, a mother or sibling perhaps?" "I don't talk to them much. Like you said, it's a story for another day." A flicker crossed Joshua's face. "I guess we all have those." Joshua didn't press the subject. "Bring Mila to the shop sometime. I have something to show her." His footsteps echoed as he left the cafe, escaping into the darkness of morning. Max ran his hand through his hair, then tucked the wallet in his pocket. When he'd chosen Wild Harbor, it had been because he had no past tied to this place. But Joshua had caught up to him, forcing him to circle back and face his own demons. Max's phone buzzed as his brother's name appeared on the screen. "Caleb, Dad's health isn't good. He's asking to see you for Christmas." A hard knot rose in his throat. Max's response was swift and final: "No." Couldn't Caleb understand he had a business to run? It's not like he could leave whenever he pleased. Driving 2 hours wasn't an option. He sent the one-word text and slid his phone across the counter. He hadn't spoken to his dad since he'd moved to Wild Harbor. His family's unresolved issues had split them apart. His phone rang, vibrating against the countertop. Caleb wouldn't leave him alone unless he answered. He knew how this game worked. "Hey, it's going to be rush hour in here soon." "Well, good morning to you too." His brother didn't hide his sarcasm. "Is that the way you greet everyone?" "Only you." Max dumped old coffee grounds in the trash. "I'm working right now, and you never call unless you want something." "I never call unless it's important," Caleb corrected. "If you called Dad every once in a while, I wouldn't have to. It's just being considerate." Max kicked the toe of his shoe against the trash can. His brother portrayed himself as a saint, but Max knew better. "If you're so considerate, then why did you date Taylor after me? Because last I checked, That's not something a brother would do. He heard a long pause, then the rustle of something in the background. Caleb wasn't alone. "I'm not calling about Taylor," his brother responded without emotion, his way of proving he was bulletproof. "Just to set the record straight, I didn't steal Taylor. She had broken up with you. She made her choice." Max stared at the wall, wanting to hit something hard. His brother would never apologize or admit he was wrong. Even though his feelings for Taylor had faded, the resentment between brothers had snowballed. He rolled his hands into fists and squeezed until they hurt. "You've always been good at making excuses. This conversation is over, unless you have more to say." "Did you see my text about Dad? He wants to see you over the holidays." "I'm not coming. I thought I made that clear." "He's on hospice, Max. They haven't even given him a month." The news slammed into Max like a wall. Now it was his turn to appear bulletproof. He steadied his voice. "A month? He may not even live a week." Max leaned against the wall, the back of his head pressed against the cool surface. He didn't want to explain their complicated relationship. "He wasn't really a dad to me. You didn't see what I did." His older brother was 17 when their sister had died. Caleb had left home a year later and missed the angry, drunken rages and the arguments between their parents. Everything had soured after the funeral, like rotten milk. "He's still your dad." His brother's voice turned hollow. "I'll let you know if I change my mind." Max wasn't about to make any promises. Instead, he'd become a master at knee-jerk reactions. If Caleb swung a fist, he had to swing back. He walked out of the storage room where Lexi waited in the corner. "You don't look good." Lexi's eyes narrowed as she followed his path across the cafe. "Good guess." What was the point of hiding his foul mood? She'd figure it out anyway. She sauntered toward him, an animal sniffing out blood. "Anything I can do to help?" "I'm fine. Just family stuff. Complicated." "How so?" She leaned on the counter, settling in for his response. The story tumbled out before he could stop it. For all her faults, she was a good listener. "My brother called and told me that my father doesn't have much time. He's still mad I won't visit, but he doesn't know how bad it was after our parents separated. My dad left me to fend for myself at 13. She listened in silence, then circled around the counter and wrapped her arms around him. She'd pulled away to look at him, her arms still secured around his waist, as a group entered the cafe. He stepped away, but it was too late. A few eyes darted from him to her. Lexi leaned back against the counter. "I hear you went to the wedding with Mila?" "Yeah." He turned away from her and measured out more coffee, unable to shake her. "What happens when she goes back to Chicago?" "Haven't talked about it yet." "I saw her walking home the night the skating rink opened. I wondered what was up." Customers were staring at them. "Good thing that's not your business." He gave her a tight smile. "I need to make more coffee. Will you excuse me?" He started to cross around her, but she blocked his way. "Whenever you decide. I'm here." "Okay." She touched his arm. An ambulance siren wailed in the distance. Max's muscles tensed. He slipped to a back storage room and sat down on the floor until the siren passed. He pulled out the wallet that Joshua had given him. The leather was stretched thin, like an old hide. As he opened it, a faded photograph fluttered to the floor. A man held a little girl, her cheeks pink in the sunlight, curls folding around her face in delicate spirals. Folds of baby fat lined her wrists, and her chunky sausage hand grasped a dandelion. He'd know those eyes anywhere. Eyes he hadn't seen since the day the sirens had taken her away. She had been playing in the yard when her ball rolled across the driveway. Mom had stepped inside for a second, while Dad backed out the car to go to work. In that moment, his little sister's life had been taken. His father had become a shell of his former self, wrapped in grief, unable to pick up the pieces of his shattered life. Mom blamed Dad for the accident, and their marriage disintegrated, the way a jack-o'-lantern slowly rots from the inside. Max hadn't understood the complexities of loss back then. All he knew was that grief could break you. 15 years later, he still avoided the memories, but they kept chasing him down, dogging him for something he did not want to give. As he held his head in his hands, a text roused him. "Mila, I'd still love to go with you to the gala this weekend, if you want me to be your guest." Like there was any question. He'd have her 1,000 times over if she asked him. But his dad's voice looped in his mind. "Everyone leaves you eventually, son." She was going back to Chicago soon. Why should he risk it all for her? As much as he wanted to push her away, he ignored the voice in his head, the one that told him not to take a chance, the one that reminded him she would still leave anyway.
Chapter 13. Mila. Maybe it was good she wouldn't see Max this morning. The way things had ended at the wedding had left an expanding uncertainty between them. Time away would give Mila a chance to figure out what she really wanted, even though everything told her it was Max. Today, though, she couldn't think about him. She was focused on fitting Megan for a wedding dress, which had required her to make a quick trip to Chicago. Work would take her mind off of Max, but after a day of her phone being oddly silent, she felt unsettled and lonely. Why hadn't he responded? He was like a craving she couldn't ignore. Mila arrived at the Woods family's home around 2 with a stack of dresses in her arms. Megan's black hair curled loosely around her shoulders, and her long dark lashes framed her copper eyes. Even though she and Lily were different, Megan would make an equally gorgeous bride. "I hope you like the dresses I brought as much as the pictures online." Mila draped the gowns across the sofa. "Thank you so much for fitting in Megan today and going to all this trouble." Becky wrapped an arm around Mila's waist. "Finn took Bill to his doctor's appointment so I could be here for Megan." "I'm so glad. Dress fittings are my favorite part." She carefully unzipped one of the dress bags. The gown shimmered in the light. "It's too beautiful to try on." Megan shook her head as she touched the delicate lace. "This is part of the fun." Mila handed the dress to Megan. "It will be even more beautiful when you're wearing it. Do you want my help?" "No." Megan grabbed Cassidy's arm. "Cass is going to help me. Put your feet up and relax." The sisters disappeared into the bedroom. "I made a fresh pot of coffee. Can I pour you a cup?" Becky motioned to Mila. "Sure, I'd love that." Mila sat down at the island as Becky poured coffee. "So, how are you?" Becky leaned across the island, setting the cup in front of her. "It seems like things are going well for you since you met Max." Mila nearly choked on her coffee. Well, he's nice." Her face grew warm. She wasn't about to explain how she had almost ruined everything. Becky poured herself a cup and sat next to Mila. "I have to admit, all the girls in my book club are jealous. They think you'll steal him away to Chicago." "We're not really that serious, and to be honest, I'm not sure I'm ready for anything long-term." Some days, it felt like Jake had ruined her for good. She wanted to trust Max, but a part of her still resisted. "Well, when you head back to the city, I wouldn't recommend staying away for long. There's some girls who aren't afraid of stealing a boyfriend." Mila didn't need a warning. Her breakup with Jake had already taught her how fragile relationships were. "I know you're watching out for me, but Max has a good head on his shoulders." Becky paused as if she was wrestling a thought. "I'm sure it's nothing to be concerned about, but yesterday morning I saw him talking with Lexi, and something struck me as odd." Mila's mouth went dry. "Why would that be odd?" She tried to hide her worry. "When we walked into the cafe, When we walked into the cafe, her arms were around him. This couldn't be happening again. The image of Max and Lexi burned into her mind. She wanted to trust Max and not jump to conclusions, but it was hard with her past. I'm sure there was a reason. Becky's eyes softened. I know it's been hard to trust someone new after Jake, but if you're serious about Max, I'm afraid that staying away isn't a good option. A small ripple of panic flowed through Mila. She'd deal with this unsettling news later. Cassidy opened the door. Are you both ready? Whenever you are. Becky climbed off her stool. Megan stepped out from the bedroom, transformed by the dress. Every curve was draped in white lace, shimmering like silver snow as she walked toward them. Becky gasped. Oh, Megan, it's beautiful. What do you think? Megan's eyes brightened. There was something calming about seeing a bride for the first time, a reminder that love could win out after all. I think it's perfect. Mila's eyes filled with tears. Megan deserved every bit of happiness. For now, she would witness an intimate moment between mother and daughter. Becky wiped a tear from her cheek as she took her daughter's hands in hers. A mother remembering her tiny baby and seeing the woman she had become. A full circle moment. Mila sat in silence, honored to be part of this special milestone, even if she would never have her own. Mila put another ornament on the tree, her mind far away, thinking of her date for the gala on Friday. The lingering doubts she had about him still hung over her like a dark cloud. It had been her sister's idea to sneak over to Max's apartment and decorate his tree while he worked. He wouldn't be home until evening and had conveniently shown her where he hid the spare key the night of the ice skating accident. His apartment reminded her of the night he had kissed her. His warm lips on hers, the crashing wave that warned her to stay away. If she returned now, her heart wouldn't be too badly damaged. She had fallen hard for him, but she still couldn't shake the fear that he would trample on her, just like Jake had. When she'd looked at Megan's shining face in her wedding gown, she'd had to beat down that deep longing to be loved. Ignore it, smother it. She would never possess that happiness for herself. Not with all the baggage she carried, thanks to Jake. Sophie hung a shiny silver ornament on the bottom of the tree, then glanced sideways at Mila, her eyes mapping out her mood. How are you feeling about Max? Mila shrugged. Her sister would see through any excuses she made. They had the kind of relationship where they couldn't hide secrets. Sophie plucked another bulb. I'm happy you're dating again. Max is a great guy. I think so. Mila hung another ornament on a branch, unsure how to say it. Sophie cocked her head. Think? You don't sound like someone who is falling in love. Is there something you're not telling me? She knew her sister wouldn't let her off easy. There's nothing to tell. It's just hard. What do you mean? Love isn't hard at the beginning. It should be easy at this point. Love gets hard when you're in it for the long haul. So you're the relationship expert now? No, I'm just saying that you either like him or you don't. She had her reasons for not rushing into things. I'm just not sure if I can trust him. Why? Hasn't he given you a reason not to trust? Has he given you a reason not to trust? Mila let out a heavy sigh as she put a gold Christmas bulb on the tree. Becky told me she saw Max and Lexi hugging at the coffee shop. It's not fair, Sophie. Every time I fall for a guy, Lexi sets her sights on him. I don't understand it. First Jake, now Max. Why couldn't she get married so I wouldn't have to worry about it anymore? Oh, I don't think a wedding ring would stop Lexi. That's exactly why Jake didn't marry her. Mila shook her head. I don't think so. If Max has any brain in his head, he'll see what an idiot she is, but that doesn't excuse you from letting him know how you really feel. I can't do that. I'm heading back to Chicago after the holidays. It will never work. Maybe you should worry less about how it's going to work and more about whether he's the right man, because if he is, you'll find a way to make it work. You're still going to the gala with him tomorrow night, right? I told him I would, but she flopped down on the couch, the same couch where he'd kissed her. Mila, you're not backing out. Don't let fear make your decision. Promise me you'll give him a chance. Why was love so hard? All she wanted was to protect herself from more pain. Being alone meant she was safe. She tucked a stray wisp of hair over her ear. I don't know. I want to. I really do. Sadness draped over her like an old coat. Her sister wrapped her arms around her, leaning her forehead into Mila's hair. It was something they'd done as girls when one of them was sad. I know you do, Sophie whispered. I don't want you to throw away a great guy because someone has hurt you before. At least give him one more try. Go to the gala. One last date. I can survive one more date, but unless you're my fairy godmother, I don't have a thing to wear. I wasn't planning on attending a gala when I packed for this trip. Are you giving me a challenge? As your official fairy godmother, I know the perfect place we can go shopping tomorrow. There's an adorable new boutique downtown called Bella's. As long as I can find you a dress, you're going to the gala. A girl must have the right pair of shoes to go with her dress. This is the first rule of getting dressed up. So when Sophie held up a fancy pair of rhinestone heels at Bella's, Mila sensed they weren't right. Not for a winter event or the dress she had picked. She shook her head in protest. When Sophie tried again, this time with some stellar dress boots, Mila was sold. She had always been a boot girl. Her dress was rose gold, cut at the knees so it would show off the boots. You know, I never would have picked that dress for myself, but the color and style are perfect for you. You're gorgeous, Sophie gushed. Celeste, the shop owner, had agreed. Immaculately dressed in an all-black ensemble, Celeste had studied fashion in Paris and then opened her shop in Wild Harbor. Dozens of girls have tried on that dress, but it hasn't been right for any of them, Celeste confessed. Until you came in. Mila admired her dress in the mirror one last time before she left. It was beautiful, but she didn't want Max to fall for her because of a dress. She wanted him to choose her because she was the one. Is it too much? Mila spun around. I'm not the type of girl who wants to be in the spotlight. I'm a wallflower who wants to hide in the corner. Sophie leaned forward and put her hands on Mila's arms. Not tonight. Mila pulled up to the gala in her new boots and dress, her heart thumping like a bass drum. Could she really just fix the banged-up pieces of her heart? Her life was a mess. Her wedding dress still hung in her closet. Nobody wanted to take on the disaster that was Mila Sutton. She whispered a prayer for help and forced herself to walk into the ballroom. It was now or never. The foyer twinkled with blue lights across the ceiling, giving the effect of a starry night, while stunning Christmas trees flanked the doors. People gathered in groups, laughing. She took a breath, one foot in front of the other. A live band started a rendition of Blue Christmas with an alto saxophone wailing sultry notes across the dance floor. The white and blue Christmas lights reflected off the rose gold sparkle on Mila's dress, making her shimmer in the light. She scanned the room for Max, but it was hard to pin anyone down in the crush of the crowd. Then she sensed the heavy stare of someone's eyes, locked on her. She glanced around to find Max's intense gaze burning into her. He moved across the ballroom, meeting her halfway, closing the space between them so that she wouldn't have to make the rest of the trek alone. He took her hands. His touch was electrifying. I've always thought you were beautiful, but tonight you look incredible. I'm the luckiest guy here. I'm not used to getting dressed up like this. Can I go back home and put my jeans on? She tucked a stray tendril over her ear. Her sister had wrangled her hair in a fancy updo with gently curled wisps framing her face. That's surprising coming from you, the woman who sells fancy dresses for a living. Don't you ever try them on just for fun? Absolutely not. It's a promise I made to myself after the Jake fiasco. Mila turned away, remembering her first dress, the one that still hung in her closet like a broken promise. She should let it go, but an inner force resisted giving it up. Until she found the right guy, the one who would thread together the pieces of her heart, it would continue to remind her of what she had lost. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring it up." Max brushed his fingers across her back. "Would you like to dance with me?" Mila couldn't keep from smiling. He had a way of lighting her up. "I'd love that." He took her hand and led her to the dance floor. The band had begun a Christmas ballad as couples streamed onto the dance floor, swaying in rhythm to the saxophone. Mila hadn't danced since high school prom and wasn't sure she could remember what to do with her body. She was a tangled mess of awkward legs and feet, but when Max wrapped his arms around her waist, she fell into a natural rhythm with him. Enveloped in her arms, all her thoughts about the wedding dress in her closet faded. For the first time, she didn't push away her feelings for Max. This was what she longed for, the sense that nothing could hurt her when she was with him. Instead of fleeing from this closeness, she let herself lean into him, enjoying the scent of his skin and the warmth of his embrace. "I'm sorry for how we ended the day at the tree farm," Max whispered, his cheek against her hair. "I want to tell you more about my family, but it's still hard to talk about." Mila leaned back, and a flicker of sadness crossed his face. He hadn't pushed her away because he was rejecting her. He had shielded his feelings because he didn't want her to see his hurt. She stopped moving. "I had no idea what I was asking. When you're ready to talk, I'll be here." "I want to, but first I need to do something." His voice dropped, but there was a promise in his eyes, a hope for reconciliation. Mila realized that now. Max leaned close. "It's hard for me to concentrate when you're this close," he whispered into her ear. He brushed his hand across her jawline, causing shivers to erupt over her skin. "By the way, why haven't we walked the beach together yet?" "It's been snowing. Not exactly beach weather." "I love the beach during different seasons, especially when the ice settles on the lake. Promise me we'll go out on the balcony tonight and look at the lake." The thought of leaving was something she pushed to the back of her mind. After the holidays, she would pack up and say goodbye, and then what? Their relationship was still in limbo while the clock counted down the seconds until this fairy tale would end. But unlike Cinderella's stroke of midnight deadline, there was no magic that would make everything better. "I promise," she whispered as the music hit a melancholy note. She rested her head on his shoulder, not wanting to think about her dwindling time with Max. Hadn't she promised herself one last date before she said goodbye? His hand enveloped hers as he pulled her toward the balcony. "Let's see it now. It might not be like taking a stroll on the beach, but the lake is beautiful." A clear, moonlit evening greeted them as they left the crowd and snuck outside. The snow from the previous day had settled on the ground in a blanket of white, and the shining, smooth surface glowed like a clean sheet. Everything looked prettier when it was cloaked in white. The brown foliage was hidden away. The ugliness of winter covered up. If only she could do the same with her life. In the distance, the lake shimmered like a mirror. She stared transfixed at the white landscape until she realized Max was no longer admiring the view. Instead, she had shifted his gaze to her, and his hand brushed her cheek, sliding down to her chin, cupping it slightly. With his other hand, he touched her bare shoulder and then dropped it down to her waist, where he wrapped his arm around her. He leaned forward, and his lips suddenly found hers. It had been so long since she'd let herself enjoy a moment like this. The warmth of his kiss left her longing for him to do it again. "I've been waiting to do that ever since I kissed you the first time, but I didn't know if you wanted it to." She nodded, falling completely under his spell. "Can I kiss you again?" he asked gently. She nodded again. His hand slid to the curve of her neck as he leaned forward, and his lips found hers again. The warmth of his hand on her back caused her mind to spin in circles. It was like she was on a rope swing that had been wound tight, slowly twirling until the tension released. He reluctantly pulled back, a smile playing on his lips. "Wow, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I'm so glad you hit me on my bike." She shook her head. "Really? I still feel terrible about it." "Don't. I'd do it again if I had to. That's how much I want to be here with you." He ran his fingers up her arm. "You're shivering. Let's go back inside to warm up." They walked into the ballroom, where the band had struck up a jazzy version of Let It Snow. Mila excused herself to go to the restroom, leaving Max to track down some drinks. She wouldn't disappear for long. When she entered the ladies' room, Lexi stood at the mirror applying a layer of red lipstick, her lips forming a perfect pucker. Mila gave her a quick nod and averted her eyes, trying to avoid a conversation. Too much history had passed between them, and the tension thrummed like a bass guitar string. Lexi swiveled around. "You look like you're enjoying this evening." "Yes, I am." Mila tried to move forward, but Lexi blocked the way. Lexi narrowed her eyes. "You know, before you came back to Wild Harbor, there was a history between Max and me." Mila didn't want to have this conversation. Not now, not ever. "The history between you and me goes back even further. Maybe it's time we just let it go." "You want me to let Max go?" "You might have to ask him to do that. He was the one who pursued me." "That's not what he told me. He's been avoiding you since I arrived home. Why do you think he asked me out?" Lexi threw her head back and laughed. "How little you know about Max Malone. Has he shared his past, his family, or hasn't he told you yet?" A twinge of jealousy twisted inside Mila's stomach. How could he tell Lexi and not her? Lexi turned back to the mirror to finish her lipstick. "He's not interested in a relationship. Not after what happened in his family." Mila lifted her chin. She didn't know the story, but she didn't believe Max would hurt her. "His feelings have changed." "Has he told you about how his last girlfriend is dating his brother? That's why he can't move on. He's not the type who wants a long-term relationship, honey." Mila shifted in her boots. It was true he hadn't said anything about their future together, and Mila hadn't wanted to rush things until she figured out her own feelings. But Lexi had slowly woven a thread of doubt under Mila's skin. "It's none of your business what he tells me," Mila shot back. "Why don't you ask him what he confessed to me on our date?" "I don't need to know." "Then prove me wrong. Ask him." Lexi leaned toward Mila, a hint of defiance in her eyes. Mila brushed past her and locked herself in a stall. She heard Lexi's stilettos clicking across the tile floor, fading with the close of the bathroom door. She heaved a sigh of relief. When she came out of the bathroom, she searched for Max in the dim light. That's when she spied him, tucked away in a corner with Lexi. Mila wove through the crowd as Lexi whispered something in his ear. Max laughed. Then she touched his arm. "Step away," Mila silently pleaded, but he didn't move. Mila halted in the middle of the crowd. Maybe Lexi was right. How could she not see it before? Max glanced up and his eyes locked with Mila's. Something passed across Max's face, an urgency that she didn't want to uncover. She needed to leave before he humiliated her more. She took a few steps backward and bumped into a server carrying a dozen slices of cheesecake. The tray clattered to the ground, knocking desserts everywhere. "I'm sorry," Mila said, before fleeing the room as quickly as possible. "Mila." Max's voice fueled her step as she wove through the crowd, racing to the foyer where she began a full sprint out the doors. The last thing she wanted was to face him. Embarrassment drove her forward, the same way it had on the day of her wedding when the entire church had been packed. Now here she was again, saddled with the same weight of shame as she sprinted toward her car. The landscape was still as beautiful as she remembered when she'd stood on the balcony kissing Max, but this time she wanted to curse its beauty, like it had tricked her into believing she could love again. "Mila, wait!" Max's voice erupted behind her as she reached her car. Fumbling for her keys, she dropped her clutch on the ground, and the contents spilled out. Mila fell to her knees, gathering her things when Max caught up. "Why are you leaving? Is it because of Lexi?" He was breathing hard, confusion etched into his brow. "Isn't it obvious?" "What are you talking about? I was having the best evening of my life with you. Then you ran out on me." "She told me about your brother's girlfriend. Then she said you confessed feelings for her." Max paused. Mila jumped on his hesitation. "So it's true?" "It's not like it sounds," he pleaded. "Let me explain." "I can't do this now." She opened the door to her car and climbed in. He wedged himself closer to keep her from shutting the door. "Where are you going?" She started the car. "Home. I'm done. I'm tired of fighting this. You can have her." "Mila, I don't want Lexi. I want you." "But this will never work. Can't you see that?" "Give me one reason why this wouldn't work." Tears formed in the corners of her eyes. She turned her face away, afraid of letting him see the emotion that was threatening to overwhelm her. "I don't know if I can trust someone again." "When will you stop being afraid? I want to be with you. Isn't that enough?" Mila gripped the steering wheel, her voice hard as stone. "Not anymore. I'm sorry, Max." As she pulled away from him, she caught his figure in the rear view mirror, his hands hanging helplessly at his sides. She could barely make out his words as her engine roared out of the parking lot. "Don't leave, please." But Mila was already gone, speeding through the night toward an unknown future ahead.
Chapter 14, Max. Max stood in his kitchen, nervously looking at his phone. He had tried calling and texting Mila a dozen times, but she was clearly avoiding him. After several days, Max couldn't wait any longer. It was Christmas Eve, and he wanted to talk with her. When he pulled up to her house, her car was gone. Not a good sign. "Max, hello." Hesitation colored Diane's usual tone. His eyes scanned the foyer in search of Mila. Is Mila home? On the day before Christmas, Mila usually spent time with family cooking food and wrapping gifts. But now, the house seemed strangely silent. "Mila isn't here. She left early this morning. She wouldn't tell us where she was going." A slow sadness stretched across Diane's face. "Do you know what time she'll be back? I can wait." Diane shook her head. "I wish I knew. I don't know what happened, but I'm not sure Mila is coming back. She packed all her things." "She went back to Chicago?" Diane leaned against the door for support, as if the weight of this news was exhausting. "It appears that way." "I didn't think she'd leave without saying goodbye." Max felt like someone had socked him. "If you talk to her, would you tell her I'm trying to reach her?" Diane pressed her lips into a melancholy smile and nodded. "I'm sorry, Max. I wish I had more information." He turned and then remembered one more thing he wanted to tell Diane. "When I moved here, I didn't think I needed anyone, but you've made me feel like part of your family. I didn't realize how much I needed that." Diane's expression melted into relief as she opened her arms to Max. "No matter how things turn out, you're always welcome here." As she closed the door behind him, Max stood on the porch for a few seconds, his heart spiraling, like he had lost his footing. This wasn't how things were supposed to end. He had planned on spending Christmas Eve with Mila, not chasing her down and fixing the cracks in their relationship. His phone buzzed as a picture appeared from his brother. Caleb stood next to his dad's bed, where his dad lay, his gaunt face attempting a smile. On the other side of the bed was his mom. They were together, and he was the missing piece. "Caleb, Mom is only here for a short time. Sorry to miss you this Christmas. It might be Dad's final one. Dad and Mom send their love. Merry Christmas, brother." For years, Mom had avoided Dad, blaming him for their child's accident and igniting a palpable tension between them. Her devastating grief had trickled into the cracks of Max's heart, filling it with resentment. If his sister hadn't died, his parents would still be together. His dad's mistake destroyed their family. Max couldn't forgive his father any more than his mother could. He had inflicted his father with a lifetime of shame and regret, His dad had paid the price, but Max's absence demanded more. What had brought Mom to his father's bedside now? It could only be one thing. The same thing Max needed to do. The one thing he could not give. Forgiveness. Max had rationalized his own lack of compassion by pointing out his dad's failures. This bitter seed had rooted in his heart, convincing him he was justified in making his dad pay the price. But the image of his mom, next to his dad, broke the thorny vine that had wrapped itself around Max's heart. It split his anger apart like an axe head to a stump. The tendrils that had invaded every part of him were finally breaking, like an invasive vine being destroyed. As Max sat in that space, the place where sorrow and forgiveness meet, he finally knew what he must do. It wasn't Mila he had to see. It was his father. 2 words would change everything. I'm coming. Max's father lived on the corner of the highway between a gas station and an abandoned house. The paint was badly peeling, and the bushes outside were so overgrown they covered his windows, blocking the light. It looked like the home of a serial killer, or the type of house kids avoided on Halloween. The embarrassment of his childhood home nearly strangled Max. It was the same reason he had never brought friends home from school. He was from the wrong side of the tracks. Too poor to afford new clothes. Too embarrassed about their shabby property. He didn't want to be target practice for their cruel remarks. When Max stepped onto the cracked porch stoop, he noticed the holes left in the cement where the iron railing had been. Max guessed it was falling off before his brother had ripped it out for good. This entire house was crumbling, decaying piece by piece. The faded blue door was covered with a permanent layer of dust. He wanted to trace the words, "Wash me," across it. He swiped the dust with his fingertip, one long streak across the surface. Evidence he had returned. There was no turning back now. The door swung open before he knocked. His brother stood in the opening, blinking back the light, tiny fault lines stretching from the corners of his eyes. Max. His eyes adjusted, but he still didn't smile. His face was filled with wonder and confusion, like Max was the shadow of a memory. How did you know I was here? Dad saw a movement out the window. He thought it was the mailman. Caleb stepped back to let Max into the entry. He's going to be so surprised. Max put his hands in his coat pockets. His feet stuck to the decaying rubber mat. Am I still invited? His voice cracked. It's been a long time, and I haven't exactly been nice to you. Something flickered on his brother's face. I know. I might have to beat you up for it later. His mouth jerked up at the corner. You're still my little brother. Pretty sure I can still take you down. The tension between them was shifting. For all his faults, Caleb had never held a grudge long. Who's here? His mother's voice chimed in the background. As Max stepped into the house, the scent of pine mixed with the faint smell of wood smoke and Old Spice overwhelmed him. It was the scent of his boyhood. His mind spiraled back to snuggling with his father on camping trips and hiking in the summer rain, of stacking chopped wood and staring at the dusting of stars while the cicadas hummed. Max's eyes adjusted to the dim light. The curtains were partially closed, and only one lamp glowed, a single bulb casting a halo of golden light on the floor. Max, you came! His mother stood to greet him and wrapped Max in a hug. It had been so long since he had seen her. As she pressed into him, her 5-foot frame seemed so tiny against his own. Since when had she become so frail? He scanned the living room, settling on his father. His dad lay on a medical bed, his pale face hollow, the shadows deepening in his cheekbones. His eyes flickered with light when he saw his son. "Max." His father's voice came out in a raspy whisper, as if forming one word consumed his energy. He lifted his hand to Max, an invitation to step closer. What do you say to someone who has hurt you so much that the scars still ached? Seeing his dad stripped of life, reduced to an invalid, turned something inside him, like a key opening a locked door. Maybe hope was possible. Max took his father's palm in his, a once firm grip reduced to skin on bones. "It's been a long time." Even though his breathing was labored, his father's eyes glittered in the dim light. Max took his father's palm in his, a once firm grip reduced to skin and bones. "It's been a long time." Even though his breathing was labored, his father's eyes glittered in the dim light. "Too long. Please, stay a while." Max sat next to his father as everyone looked on with wonder, as if they could hardly believe he had returned. "Can I get you something?" His mom rubbed her hands together. "A glass of water?" She nervously glanced between father and son. Something had shifted with his mom. Max sensed she wanted to make things right. "One for each of us," his father coaxed. "Move closer so I can see you." Max stepped closer to his father's bed as his mother wandered to the kitchen. In the hall entrance, Taylor appeared. "Hi, Max." She leaned against the corner of the entrance, keeping her distance. "It was nice of you to come." "Hey, Taylor." He had expected more of a reaction, but the flame he had once held for her had extinguished like a puff of smoke. Maybe it was because everything paled in light of his dad's situation. As his brother moved closer to Taylor, Max didn't sense any of the jealousy he had felt before. Now that he wanted to be with Mila, it changed everything. "I should have come sooner." Max glanced at his father, who was still marveling that he was here. "I'm sorry for waiting so long." His mother set 2 glasses of water on the end table between them. Max's mouth was like dry sand. He grasped the cold glass and took a sip. His dad exhaled a strenuous breath that sounded like he was breathing through a drinking straw. "I'm just glad you came." His brother put his hands in his pockets and nodded toward a photo album that was open on the couch. "Mom brought pictures of when we were kids. Wait till you see the haircuts she inflicted on us." Mom clicked her tongue as her hand swept across faded photographs. "Now, no complaining. We didn't have money for haircuts back then." She sat on the couch and flipped through a few pages, then held up a picture of Max and Caleb dressed in checkered button-down shirts, their hair neatly slicked to their scalps. "This was the Easter when you were 3. Mom pointed to a picture where Max's bangs were chopped in a crooked slant. "At least we were cute." Max's lips twitched. He didn't want his mom to feel bad. Their lack of money had been a constant source of tension in the family. His dad shook a finger toward the photo album. "Show him that camping trip to the Upper Peninsula." Mom shook her head, as if even recalling that trip was exhausting. "A flat tire on our way north. Raccoons got into our food. It rained the whole time. From the pictures, you wouldn't even know. You both look so happy." She passed the photo album to Max. 2 little boys posed outside a tent. Max was covered in dirt and holding a gigantic stick, while Caleb flexed his non-existent, boyish muscles. "I loved that trip." Max flipped the page. "We played in the stream and got lost on adventures in the forest. It was like the entire world was ours to conquer. Caleb sat down on the arm of the chair next to Max and peered over his shoulder. One of my favorite trips, except that the raccoons ate all our chocolate chip cookies. Dad let out a tiny "huh" that sounded like a laugh and a realization. All this time, I thought that trip was ruined. You boys liked it, and I didn't even know. It wasn't ruined, Dad, Caleb reassured him. We made the best of an unpleasant situation. Max flipped the page. His baby sister's face covered the entire page. Well, there's our sweet Jenny. His dad's expression softened as he gazed at her baby cheeks. I haven't seen this picture in so long. Max frowned at the pages, wishing he could remember the sound of her voice. When he glanced at Dad, he could see tears in the corners of his eyes. He couldn't tell if they were tears of regret or tears of what might have been. But he was a shattered man, someone who had broken repeatedly until there was nothing left. His dad's breath came out in tiny gasps. I'm sorry for how I handled everything after Jenny's death. I wanted to bring my little girl back, and I treated everyone rotten. I hope someday you can forgive me. His whole countenance was weary, like everything had been pressed out until there was nothing left. How could he blame his father for breaking under the weight of grief? His sister's death, the crumbling of their family, the separation between them. It all had been too much. I forgive you. The words felt like a sweet release, a freedom he had not known he needed. You're not the only one who messed up. I made you carry too much. Max, you never needed my forgiveness. It was already yours. His dad leaned forward and wrapped his arms around Max. Bitterness had cost him years, but in one moment, forgiveness had erased everything.
Chapter 15. Mila. Mila took a deep breath as she waited outside the door of the church for the annual Christmas Eve service. It was now or never. She couldn't hide outside on the steps all evening. Mila snuck in the back door of the church and was greeted with the refrain, O come, Emmanuel," echoing through the church. She peeked in the back, her eyes scanning the rows until she finally found her family. When she slid into their pew, her parents glanced over, surprised to see her after she bolted out the door early this morning. Mila lowered her head, staring at the old wood floor. Memories were etched into the shiny surface, marking 100 years of Wild Harbor history. Families had wedded, born children, and died, each generation repeating the cycle. Decades of brides had walked across these pine planks, including her mother, who, along with her father, had vowed to love until death do us part. She was doing the right thing leaving town tonight, but all she could think of was that moment on the balcony. She had never been happier than when she had been in Max's arms. Earlier that day, she had escaped an hour north to a secluded beach where she would be a stranger. She nestled in the sand for the day, sorting out her feelings under a chilly blue sky. No one would find her. As she'd sat huddled under a blanket, snow had lightly dusted the sand. The beach always soothed her in a way that nothing else could, and Mila felt the pulsating tide wash over her weary emotions. She could learn to let go of Max, even though everything begged her to hang on. Her feelings for Max were making her sick with nerves, which meant she had to come up with a plan. Mila would go back to Chicago tonight, but first she would attend the Christmas Eve service with her family. It was the least she could offer them, since she was missing Christmas Day with her family. She couldn't risk Max showing up at her parents' house uninvited. It would be better to return to her empty apartment in the city, to move on, no matter what her heart felt. Now here she was, sitting in a candlelit church, trying to make peace with her decision. Where was clarity when she needed it most? She ached to hear God drop an answer in her lap, to confirm her decision was the right one. She listened as the pastor read about the birth of Christ. Images of Max interrupted her focus. What was he doing tonight? She toyed with the phone in her hands, tempted to turn it on to see if he had tried to reach her. The quiet muffle of a door closed behind her. She shifted and spied Max standing in the back of the sanctuary, scanning the seats. She turned away from him quickly and sank down. What if he wasn't looking for a seat, but was looking for her? She peeked back, and his gaze found hers across the sanctuary. Mila faced the front, her eyes on the actors playing Mary and Joseph, who sat serenely staring into a tiny infant's face. If Mila hadn't sensed the panic rising, it might have been a wonderful moment, but she couldn't stay still, and urgency drove her on. Go now. She tapped her mother's leg. I'm so sorry, but I have to leave, Mila whispered to her family. What? Why? Thelma frowned. We haven't even lit the Christmas Eve candles yet, Mom protested. Their confused looks only made her escape more awkward as she crawled over their legs, ready to bolt out of the church. Luckily, her aisle of escape was on the far end of the sanctuary, opposite Max. As she dashed out of the foyer of the church and swung open the front door, she nearly knocked over Joshua. He took a step back, but seemed unfazed by her frantic escape. A wool hat covered his ears as he dug his hands into his coat pockets. Merry Christmas, Mila. Where are you off to this fine evening? The question was light and unassuming, but she knew Joshua wasn't a dummy. No one fled from a church without a reason. Mila opened her mouth, but she couldn't seem to formulate an answer. He wouldn't judge her, but she couldn't confess the real reason. I have to go. I'm sorry, she said, her voice cracking. You look upset. Anything I can help with? You can't fix this. He nodded, his thin lips clamped neatly together. The longer he stood there, the more he seemed to read her thoughts. Her head ached. He rubbed his gloved hands together. How is the Christmas Eve service? The service? She had almost forgotten. It was nearly identical every year. They're probably lighting candles now as they sing carols. That's my favorite part. The thought of Max, with candlelight glowing on his face, made her want to turn around. Something soft and sad passed across Joshua's face. You know what I marvel at when I read the Christmas story? This baby came to earth to be rejected. That's what he chose. Rejection. Isn't that a miracle too? Mila gripped the edge of her coat and pulled the collar around her neck. Was it getting colder outside? A shiver ran down her arms. She didn't understand why Joshua was telling her this. I'm leaving tonight. His eyes dropped to her coat pocket. I suppose your grandmother always knew. That's why she left you something. She hadn't noticed it, but sticking out of the flap of her wool coat was a card with her Grams's swooping cursive writing. She ran her fingers over the envelope, a small lump clearly visible under the surface. Grams must have suspected that she wouldn't stay, and it pained her to think of them gathering for Christmas dinner without her. She'd miss her family's laughter echoing through the home as beef roasted in the oven. But would anyone remember to set the fancy butter dish next to the homemade strawberry jam? The jellied berries always spread perfectly inside one of Grams's homemade rolls. Sweet, sticky jam glistening on shiny china. All the wonders of home wrapped in a hot, buttered roll. She marveled at how her head kept beating the strong and steady when she was giving up so much. Instead, she'd chosen to spend Christmas in her empty apartment like a faded half-person. Nothing was worse than a Christmas alone. I'm not feeling great. I'm sorry, Joshua. Her body was wrung out and her head throbbed painfully. She'd never known how sick grief could make her. You haven't done anything wrong. He offered a warm smile that felt like sunshine across her shoulders, the way a beam of light presses through a window on a chilly day. Her throat ached like it was pricked with needles. It seems I've done everything wrong. My shop, my life, She backed away from him and rubbed her fingers against her aching temples. Her world spun and tilted as her vision blurred for a second. Her body was revolting against the cold, and she wondered if she looked as bad as she felt. I should get on the road. Joshua's face melted into concern. You don't look well. Can I help? I'm fine. She took a few more steps backward, wanting to sink down into a chair or a bed, anywhere she could rest. She needed to make it to her car before her resolve burned out and she crashed at her parents' house. Are you sure? He reached toward her, but she held up her hand. Thank you, but no. I need to do this on my own. Then she turned and headed to her car, her wobbly legs threatening to collapse under her. A strange pain radiated from her bones. Tears streamed down her neck as she climbed into her car. She didn't have to glance in her rear-view mirror to know her mascara was leaving black streaks down her cheeks. A sad clown with painted tears. She placed her fingers on her temples and pressed the hollow spot where they throbbed. As much as she tried to convince herself her relationship with Max was over, she didn't want it to be. In a perfect world, they'd be sharing this evening together, ending with a goodbye kiss on the front stoop of her house. The image felt like shattered glass fanned across the floor. What she needed was to strangle these feelings until they suffocated and say goodbye to all the dreams she'd once had for them. No lucky coin could change her life. No magic snap of the finger. It was time to sever all ties to Max. As she sped out of the town, her throat burning, she could no longer think straight. Everything in her was numb, except for the hot pain radiating through her body. All she wanted now was to fall into her bed and not wake until the pain was gone. She had no idea what time it was when she woke, sprawled across her bed. She lifted her head and saw that she still wore her clothes from Christmas Eve. She brushed wisps of hair off her sweaty forehead and felt her blouse clinging to her wet back. Heat radiated through her body, even though she shook with chills. She tried to sit up, and pain shot through her skull like a bullet, making the room swirl. Oh, she moaned and stumbled off the bed and slipped to her knees. Her body met the cool wood floor. She pressed her face to the smooth surface, and a tiny sensation of relief met her flaming cheek. She was sick on Christmas of all days, as if her life could get any worse. She tilted her head toward the bathroom door and crawled, determined to locate a bottle of pain reliever. At least there was no one to see her in this miserable state. What are you doing up? Max stood at the entrance of her room, staring down at her pathetic figure on the floor. She squinted as her eyes adjusted to the dark. How did you get in here? She rubbed the massive pain on her forehead. It was awful, like a tire had run over her skull. Your sister has a key, remember? She had forgotten about the emergency key she'd given to Sophie when she moved to Chicago. Her sister had never bothered using it before. Why did she give it to you? I didn't ask you to come. Her words came out harsher than she'd meant them to, but she had no filter when she felt this horrible. Her body was like a wasted shell. You didn't ask, but Joshua did. He was concerned about you after you fled the church. She slumped back against her bed. He should have sent someone from my family. She couldn't see Max's face clearly, but the words were like grenades lobbed in the dark. It's late, and your family's Christmas is in the morning, so he asked me to check on you. I couldn't leave you sick on the holiday. She had no idea what time it was, but the world was black and silent. I was already going to be alone on Christmas. I can take care of myself. Go enjoy your holiday. With Lexi. She couldn't bring herself to say it because everything in her body already ached too much. Did Lexi know where Max was right now? She'd follow after him and steal him away if she were his love interest. Is that why you were crawling on the floor? She couldn't see his smile, but the way he said it hinted at one. He stooped down and ran his fingers across her forehead. You're burning up. Tell me where you keep the medicine. I'm perfectly fine to get it myself. She tried to stand, turning and grasping the footboard for support, but her legs wobbled under her. Max grabbed at her waist and seated her on the bed like a rag doll. You're not fine. If you refuse to tell me, I'll search for it myself. He went into her bathroom and started opening drawers. Embarrassment twisted inside as he searched her private drawers. She couldn't take him rattling through her cupboards anymore. "It's in the cupboard over the toilet." He approached her with 2 pills and a glass of water and sat on the edge of her bed. "Here, take this." She gulped the pills down and then curled up in a fetal position. Her teeth chattered as she buried her face in a blanket. "I'm so cold." "Do you want to change your clothes?" He stroked her hair. "You look, well, no offense, but you look rather uncomfortable in a blouse and skirt." It was true she was miserable, but she could hardly move. She moaned in response. "Why don't I find some pajamas for you? I'm sorry, but I can't help you with..." He circled his fingers toward her clothes. "I feel like I'm dying." She closed her eyes. A dresser drawer slid open and then shut. So there's this." He held up a pair of flannel pajamas with llamas on them. "Or this." The other option was a t-shirt and shorts set with Christmas cats. "Llamas or cats?" "Llamas," she frowned. "Please don't make fun of me for this later." He laid the llama pajamas next to her. "I won't, but I won't forget either." He patted her shoulder and left the room. She stripped off her skirt and unbuttoned her blouse. Her body shivered as she dragged her tired legs into the pants and fumbled at the buttons on the shirt. She didn't even care if she put on her pajamas correctly. She flopped back on the bed, her body riddled with exhaustion. If she had more energy, she would have said goodbye to Max before he left, but she was too weary to make it across her apartment. Would she even remember he had been here? She wasn't sure. Huddling under the blankets, her eyes drifted shut like a black curtain descending on a theater. As her mind spiraled into darkness, all she could think was that he had come for her. When she woke, the sunlight drifted through the crack in her curtain. A long yellow ray sprayed her eyelids with light. She rolled over and buried her nose in the pillow, her body wet with sweat. She had to escape from these blankets before she suffocated. Tossing the comforter off, she lifted her head and blinked back the blinding light. Her head still ached painfully, but her body was no longer shaking with cold. She dragged herself to the bathroom and searched through the cabinet for a thermometer. It wasn't in its usual place, but she couldn't remember moving it. In the mirror, she glimpsed her face and was shocked by how bad she looked. A gray pallor had settled over her colorless skin, like the ground turkey meat that had spoiled in her fridge. Her hair was damp from sweat and smashed on one side, and her pajama top was buttoned crookedly, leaving a mismatched, gaping neckline. Every time she blinked, the heat from her head cooked the back of her eyes. She dragged her weary body to the kitchen. "Good morning," a voice chimed. Mila jerked around. Max stood by the coffee maker, his body resting against the edge of the counter. What was he doing here? A watery memory floated to the surface of her brain. In her feverish fantasy, he had found her on the bedroom floor last night, but she couldn't remember much else. The flashback was like a strange dream, where he slowly evaporated like morning fog. But her eyes confirmed the truth. There was a live, gorgeous man in her apartment. Not just any man, but Max. Even in her sick state, her body wanted to curl up into his. "I forgot you were here," her voice croaked. "I'm searching for the thermometer." She opened her junk drawer and raked her hands through it. Max pulled it out of his back pocket and held it in front of her. "You had it?" She put out her hand, briefly annoyed that he had searched her cabinets. Her emotions felt chiseled by a dull saw, edgy and ragged. "I want to make sure my fever is gone." "Your temperature 2 hours ago was still 102, but at least it had dropped from 104. He checked his watch. "Time to take your pills again." "You took my temperature while I slept?" She stuck the thermometer under her armpit as she leaned against the kitchen counter and narrowed her eyes. She couldn't remember him coming last night or taking her temperature. "I placed it under your arm, nothing more." His eyes swept over the crooked collar of her shirt. "You know I was sick last night when I buttoned this." She frowned at him. He lifted his hands in the air. "You don't have to explain. I can see how sick you are." "Were." are, he countered. You still are. I woke up blazing hot. My fever broke last night. We'll see. He seemed sure of himself. How did he even know? He wasn't a doctor, and she was feeling loads better. The thermometer beeped. She glanced down. 101.5. Still sick. Well, he lifted his eyebrows. I'm fine. She hid the thermometer behind her back. I'm not leaving until you show me it's normal. He grabbed it out of her hands, and his eyes flitted over the number. Not normal yet. That means I stay. Max, I'm fine. You look like death. Gee, thanks. How about now? She crossed her eyes and let her tongue hang out. You're weird when you're sick. A grin spread across his face. Take your pills. He shoved 2 more pain relievers her way and a glass of water. Merry Christmas. Her eyes widened. It's Christmas? She smacked her forehead. I totally forgot. You can't be here. You need to go home. She grabbed his arm and shoved him toward the door, but he was massively strong, a pillar of unmovable stone. Her feet skated out from under her on the tiled floor. In your state, you shouldn't be alone. His eyes locked on hers. A fluttery feeling rose in her stomach. Apparently having a fever didn't squelch her reaction to him. Thank you for your offer, but I don't need help. Plus, it's Christmas, and you shouldn't be here. She retreated to her bedroom, shutting the door and falling onto the bed. She wasn't a baby and didn't need his assistance, even though a tiny piece of her didn't mind having him in her apartment. She snuggled under the blankets, her head sinking into the pillow, her eyelids heavy. At one point, she felt fingertips slip across her cheek, a palm flattening against it, then a wet rag dragged over her forehead. Later, fingers stroked her head, and a voice whispered something in her ear. In a muddled state between waking and sleep, she couldn't understand it. Confused thoughts spiraled through her mind like a hawk making lazy loops in the sky. Her dry lips formed soundless words as her body blazed with heat. She dreamed of fire, a circle of flaming light. A hand touched her forehead, then moved her body, folding her into someone's arms. Cradled there, her cheek pressed into a baby's soft t-shirt. Every part of her ached. When she woke, her eyelids fluttered open, the memory of being held long gone. The sunlight had faded into darkness as the room took shape. Dresser, bed, curtains. No more spinning walls. Twisting her legs over the bed, she knocked into someone's shoulder. Easy, killer. Max stood up and placed his hands on her shoulders, blocking her from getting out of bed. What are you doing on my floor? I thought you'd left by now. Her words were sharp. She was tired of running into him without warning. You were still sick. Your fever spiked again. Who would make you take your medicine if I left? I would. He looked doubtful. She rubbed her head. Okay, maybe not, but I feel a little better. And hungry. What time is it? Her stomach felt like a sad, empty little pit. It's 6 o'clock. In the evening? I can't believe I slept all day. I missed Christmas. You didn't. It's still Christmas. Let's take your temperature. She flopped back onto her pillow and stuck the thermometer under her arm as she looked at the crack on her ceiling. It stretched the entire length of her bed like a winding road on a map that led to nowhere. The device under her arm beeped. 97.3. It's normal. She waved the thermometer toward him to prove it. I've been dreaming of pot roast and mashed potatoes with bread. No, scratch the bread. I want rolls with real butter and strawberry jam. Could you be more specific? He gave her a wry smile while he searched his phone for a restaurant. Do you know how hard it is to find a restaurant open on Christmas Day? Much less that exact menu? Probably next to impossible. I'll see what I can do. You rest. A wave of homesickness hit her stomach. If she had stayed in Wild Harbor, she could be recovering in her childhood room while her mom carried up Christmas dinner on a TV tray, just like when she was little. Instead, she was relying on this incredibly generous man to take care of her, who was off limits now that she had seen how he looked at Lexi. Her heart swung like a pendulum in her chest between, I love him not. Her voice stuck in her throat, strangling her from asking why he was here when he could be with someone else. Vulnerable conversations weren't her forte, and her heart was worn out from hoping for too much. She needed to learn to live with rejection. As he dashed out of the apartment in search of food, she stripped off the llama pajamas and hopped into the shower, hoping she could wash her feelings down the drain. Cranking the water until the bathroom mirror fogged, she stood under the shower and let the water dissolve her sweat and tears. She couldn't think about Max Malone like she used to anymore. When her skin was wrinkled and pink, she changed into a knit dress tasteful enough for Christmas, but as soft as a baby's t-shirt. Like Max's shirt. Why did everything circle back to him? When Max returned, his eyes flitted over her. He looked both pleased and confused. You heading out? After all that sweat, I was the grossest human being ever. I thought you deserved something better. You looked good before, Mila. You always do. The way he said it made her heart trip over its normal rhythm. If a man could see you at your worst and still say you look good, it was proof he was a keeper. But in this case, not hers to keep. I brought food. He pulled out a container of roast beef and mashed potatoes. You're lucky the diner was open. They even had rolls. And strawberry jam? Well, he said, pausing for effect. He kept her hanging by a thread. Not homemade. I had to pull some strings for that. He lifted what looked like a pint of fresh strawberry jam. Her eyes widened. Where did you find that bottle of goodness? She wanted to take a spoon and eat it straight from the container. Secrets. Don't ask. He popped the lid open and held the jam to her nose before carrying it to the table. All her reluctance toward him was dissolving like snow on a sunny sidewalk. She wouldn't trample into uncomfortable questions about his relationship with Lexi. For now, she'd enjoy her dinner. Merry Christmas to me. He picked up the Christmas candle from the island and transferred it to the table, lighting it between them. The fire caught his blue eyes, dark sapphires glittering in the light, while the window framed a snow globe scene. Everything she had ever wanted, but nothing she could have, not beyond today. After being sick, Mila couldn't believe how delicious everything tasted. She wanted to gorge herself, especially on rolls and jam. Save room for dessert, Max warned her. You bought dessert? I didn't ask for it. But I knew you'd want it. She licked the spoon from the jam jar. This was like dessert for me. I'm not sure anything could top it. How about a coffee? He tossed his napkin on the table and headed to the kitchen. She followed, leaning across the island as he worked his magic. You have a sad coffee maker, he teased. Spoken like a true barista. Which is why I'm not using it. I have an emergency French press in my car. He held up the small glass pitcher. Fancy and appropriate, given you own a cafe. He set his phone next to her. Can you set the timer when I'm ready? Essential for the correct brew. Of course. Like she knew anything about making coffee with a French press. The only thing she knew about coffee was how to order one. He measured the grounds for the French press and boiled water. What's for dessert? My options were limited given it's Christmas, but there was this little bakery down the road that I found. He opened a box which held an entire cheesecake decorated with fresh strawberries and drizzled with chocolate. You bought the whole thing? Max, I can't eat that. I know. That's why I'm here, to help you finish it. Was he trying to ruin her waistline? She didn't know, and she didn't care. Deep red strawberries fanned across the cake. Cheesecake was the one dessert she had always requested for her birthdays growing up. Not classic white birthday cake, not chocolate cupcakes. He was a mind reader, and she was falling under his spell, one delicious bite at a time. You know how to win my heart, Max Malone. The words spilled out before she could stop them. That's the idea, he shot back before turning to the French press. Start the timer for 4 minutes, then I'll cut that dessert. He sliced the cake into neat little triangles and slid them onto plain red dessert plates. With the white cheesecake and red strawberries on top, the scene begged for a photo shoot. The timer dinged as he finished preparing the coffee. "Oh, I almost forgot your gift." He spun on his heel. "What gift?" Max pulled out a wrapped box with a red bow. "While you were sleeping today, I went out and bought this." He slid the gift in front of her. "Go ahead, open it." She rotated the beautifully wrapped gift in her hands. Guilt was overwhelming her. "Max, I don't have a gift for you." "That's okay. It's a small present I stumbled on at one of the stores and, well, I couldn't stop myself." She unwrapped the paper and opened the box. A mug? When she pulled it out, it had a llama decked out in a Christmas hat that read, "Fa la la llama." She smiled. "In honor of my pajamas?" He nodded. "I promised not to tease you, but I never promised not to bring it up again." He took the mug, rinsed it, and poured the coffee. A plate of cheesecake slid her way. She took a slow bite of the dessert as he watched her. "How is it?" His eyes were on her lips. "So good, I could cry." She savored the next bite of a huge strawberry, then realized her terrible manners. He laughed. "I'm so glad you like it." They ate their desserts, then pushed their plates aside and lingered over coffee until it was late. Max's expression suddenly grew serious. "I finally had a talk with my family. If I couldn't even talk with you about it, I knew I had a problem." "Oh, how'd it go?" She sat up straighter, not wanting to push him. "Better than I thought. My dad and I finally had the conversation we've been needing to for the last decade." "Was your brother there with Taylor?" "He was, but it was different this time. I realized Taylor was never my perfect match." He looked like he was going to say more, but stopped. "Really?" "It was the strangest thing. I've been angry for so long, but when I saw my dad, it's like all the resentment disappeared. Poof, up in smoke. I didn't want to live that way anymore." "There's another reason you didn't want to live like that." Mila touched Max's arm. "You're a good man." "No, a good man would have reconciled a long time ago, but I'm glad I didn't wait anymore." His gaze drifted to her hand on his arm, then to her lips, a shadow darkening his face like clouds on a sunny day. "I should go." She wished he wouldn't, but she couldn't ask him to stay longer. He'd already done so much for her already. "You saved my Christmas. Otherwise, I would have moped around my apartment feeling sorry for myself." "I know. That's why I came." His wry smile made her light up. He grabbed his coat and a few belongings, hesitating for a second as he glanced her way. One last moment of connection. She couldn't keep him to herself. He'd been at her apartment since Christmas Eve. Surely Lexi was wondering where he was. She spotted his phone on the island and hurried to grab it before he left. A message flashed across the screen. Even though she knew she shouldn't read it, curiosity overwhelmed her. "Lexi. Merry Christmas, Max. Let's get together soon. Much love." Emojis of hearts and red lips were stamped across the screen. Pain twisted through her as she turned the phone over, sickened by the words. Max was putting on his coat, oblivious to how she was crumbling inside. "Here's your phone." She slid the phone into his coat pocket, hiding the ugly feeling rising inside her. She wanted to reply, "Stop contacting me," then block her texts. Lexi brought out all kinds of monstrous thoughts in Mila, especially when it came to Max. She needed to do better. "Goodbye, Max. Thank you for coming." She hoped he didn't notice her abruptness, like her words were clipped too close around the edges. Something flickered across his face. "Are you trying to get rid of me?" he teased. She shook her head. Of course she was, if only to numb the pain. As nice as the evening had been, there was still so much that wasn't resolved between them. "You've spent a lot of time here." She drew her arms around herself and leaned against the wall. "I'm grateful you came, but you should get back." He hesitated, then took a step forward. He tilted her chin toward him softly. He was going to kiss her. She could see it in his eyes. He moved his face closer to her, eye to eye, breath to breath. His eyelids closed as she turned her face away. She couldn't kiss him now. Almost like a whisper, his lips brushed her cheek with the lightest touch, a goodbye that left her aching for more. Her heart was yo-yoing between wanting to push him away and pulling him back to her. His eyes searched hers, confusion spinning like orbiting planets between them. "Merry Christmas, Mila." "Merry Christmas," she whispered. "When will I see you again?" She shrugged. "I have to catch up on work before the end of the year." Work was her go-to excuse for avoiding Max now. He was a business owner and knew the sacrifices. He nodded, unconvinced. "But not New Year's Eve." "We'll see." "I'm not allowing you to ring in the new year alone. Trust me on this." Could she? She nodded, even though she still had doubts. He brushed her cheek. "I'll track you down before I let you sit in your apartment by yourself." "Oh, really?" Every cell went on high alert in response to his touch. She felt radioactive. "I'll let you know." A vague answer was so much easier to hide behind. She shut the door behind him. She leaned against it and slid to the floor, her head in her hands. Love wasn't supposed to be this complicated. There was no way she would compete with Lexi. Either she needed to step away from this relationship forever or force herself to have a heart-to-heart with Max. No more playing games. A small white triangle edge peeked out of her coat. Graham's card. She grabbed the envelope and ripped it into one clean line. The check fluttered from the card onto the floor as Mila pulled out a silver coin, one just like Gramps used to tuck into her Christmas cards every year. She smoothed her thumb over the coin, feeling the outline of cold metal under her fingertips. "Mila, Max told me the story of your fake date arrangement, and my first reaction is that you'd fooled old Grams at her old game. Despite knowing this, I'm giving you a check to help with your shop. No strings attached. You fulfilled your end of the bargain, and I want to help. You can't talk me out of it, so don't even try." Max melted this stodgy old lady's heart by admitting he had fallen for you. He's probably not going to tell you because he's a respectful gentleman, but I like him. He's a good one. Worth taking the risk if you're willing to do the same. I'm not much for sentiment, but Gramps always liked giving you these silver dollars. I could tell you it's a lucky coin, but I don't want to lie, and you don't need luck anyway. Your Gramps would be so proud. He was the one who taught me that everything worth having is worth the risk. Love, Grams. Mila opened the check and gasped at the amount. Grams had given her more than she needed to cover her bills and expenses. Mila folded the check carefully and placed it on the table, her eyes pricked with tears. It was too generous to keep, but her Grams wouldn't let her give it back. It would be an insult to turn it away. Mila turned the coin around in her fingers. It was identical to the silver dollar she had given away on that bitterly cold evening before her entire life had changed. The day she'd met Max. She shoved the coin into her wallet, burying it deep. It was time to make some hard decisions. First, she needed to do something about the wedding dress. It hung in the closet, mocking her, representing all she had once dreamed of before her life had fallen apart. She couldn't stand the memory of her failed engagement anymore. Running to the closet, she swung open the doors and tore at the dress until it fell from the hanger and crumpled onto the floor. She wanted the dress gone, to finally bury the past so she could move on. Only one person knew she still had the wedding gown in her closet. Cassidy. Her friend would help her get rid of it for good. She picked up her phone and rehearsed the words that would finally release her from the past. "Cassidy, I'm ready to get rid of the dress."
Chapter 16, Max. Max couldn't put his finger on what had been wrong when he'd left Mila's place, but something had clearly shifted. He could see it in her eyes when he tried to kiss her lips. Hesitation had replaced longing. The week between Christmas and New Year's stretched painfully on. The cafe stayed busy with its usual holiday clientele. Still, he waited for some response from Mila, a sign that she'd be coming home for New Year's Eve. He sent one last text before closing, hoping she might say yes. Max, what are you doing for New Year's Eve? The invitation for tonight is still open. Don't make me track you down. He would find her if she didn't respond. She couldn't hide from him forever. He glanced at the clock. 5 minutes until closing. The cafe was shutting down earlier than normal, so he could attend the New Year's Eve countdown party in front of the clock tower. But now his plans were up in the air. He'd even drive to Chicago and wait by her door if that was what he needed to do. He wiped down the last table, oblivious to the fact that one last customer had entered, while his back was turned. "You never responded to my message," Lexi murmured behind him. He swiveled toward her. "Which one? We see each other all the time." The look on her face was a mixture of annoyance and boredom. "The Christmas one." "The one with the heart and lip emojis?" He hadn't wanted to acknowledge that message for a reason. He shrugged. "I didn't think it needed a response." "I thought there was something between us." She leaned against a nearby table, her body stretched tight like a rubber band. "At least, that's how you felt once." She hadn't forgotten the date, the one where he had mistakenly admitted he was interested in her. It had been a rash thought that had flitted through his mind for 2 seconds before he said it out loud and realized his blunder. When he'd first moved to town, he'd been a lonely newcomer with a broken heart. Taylor had burned him, and Lexi was an attractive single woman. A terrible combination for someone who desperately needed to find his place. But after a few weeks, it became clear she wasn't his type. His feelings had changed, but somehow she wouldn't let his comment go. "When I said that, it was a mistake. I was lonely when I moved here," Max reminded her. "Didn't know a soul. I appreciated your friendship. The way you came alongside me when everyone else was skeptical because I was a stranger. But face it, we're not a good match." Lexi was a nice girl, but she didn't make his pulse race like Mila did. "It's someone else, isn't it?" She frowned, clearly dissatisfied with his answer. "Even if it wasn't, I wouldn't be with you." Her lips tightened. "Well then, I guess my time here is over. Maybe it's time for you to find a new realtor for your investment properties." She swiveled on her heel and headed for the door. "You're right. Consider yourself officially let go." He'd find another realtor, but he couldn't find anyone like Mila. A knock at the door interrupted her exit as Cassidy waved from the other side of the glass. He waved her in as Lexi brushed by her. "Hi, Lexi," Cassidy chirped. Lexi lifted a hand but didn't bother turning. Her face was as cold as a steel plate. "Max, do you have any muffins left?" Cassidy's eyes drifted over to Lexi, who stormed past the window of the cafe. "I'm sorry if I interrupted. I didn't know someone else was here." Max cleared his throat. "You didn't interrupt anything. She was just leaving." "Boy, she's in a mood." "My fault." He threw a towel over his shoulder. "I was honest with her. Just fired her from being my realtor." "Really? That's great news." Cass held her breath like she was going to burst. "I'm not supposed to tell you this, but did you hear that Mila's home?" "What?" "No. I texted her this week, and she hasn't responded. I've been trying to convince her to go to the New Year's Eve party tonight. I can't believe she didn't tell me she was coming." If she was trying to stay away from him, she was doing a good job of it. "We're talking about Mila here. After Jake broke things off, it was like she lost all confidence in ever meeting a man who wouldn't disappoint her. Up until a week ago, she hung on to her wedding gown. She finally asked me to get rid of it." "Did you?" Cassidy nodded. No wonder she wouldn't let him into her life. What should I do? Cassidy shrugged. She seemed as confused as he was. Max, I've known Mila all my life. When she's scared, she runs away. It's always how she's been. What do I do about it? Cassidy grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the door. Don't let her get away this time. When Max showed up at Mila's house, his confidence had slipped a few notches. He'd hatched a plan, but now it seemed so ridiculous. He wasn't even sure if he'd be brave enough to go through with it. According to Cassidy, everyone from the family was gone for the evening, leaving Max the perfect opportunity to get Mila's attention. The light from her bedroom glowed dimly through a curtain. He eyed the height of the roof on the back porch and shook his head. There was no way he could jump high enough to reach it. He turned and spied their old shed, where he hoped her dad kept a ladder. He prayed Brian had left it unlocked. As he tried the handle, the door clicked open, and Max spied a ladder just the right height for climbing the porch roof, where he could reach her window. This was crazy, but he didn't care anymore. He climbed the ladder, then scaled the porch roof, not expecting how difficult this would be when he couldn't see his footing clearly. He took a step forward and tripped on a fallen twig, which caused him to lose his balance and knock against the house with a thud. The curtain shifted as Mila appeared, eyes wide. Max? The window creaked open. What are you doing out there? Her voice was a mixture of wonder and confusion. What does it look like? She shook her head. You're going to get yourself killed falling off the porch roof. Why didn't you use the front door, like a normal person? Because I wanted to serenade you, like Romeo? She blinked and stared at him. But why? He needed to do this before he chickened out. I meant it when I said I'd track you down, so here I am. He took a step closer to her window and grabbed the edge. He could finally see her eyes clearly, the moon reflecting across her cheek. Now that I found you, would you go with me to the New Year's Eve party tonight? I don't think that's a good idea. He couldn't back down. Not now. You haven't even given me a chance yet. No amount of persuasion is going to change my mind. It's clear there's something between you and Lexi. To compete with her would be ludicrous. I'm not interested in Lexi, he shot back. Then why does she send you emojis of hearts and lips? Why does she sign her texts with much love? How did you... He stopped, only just remembering when Lexi's text had come in. It was the night he had been at Mila's apartment. She kept going before he could respond. Then tonight, I was going to stop by the French press, but when I pulled in, it was just you and Lexi together. I never got out of my car. He didn't know she had seen him tonight at the cafe. He'd been so close to her without even realizing it. Just give me a chance to explain. I've tried, but every time I turn around, she's there with you. I'm tired of feeling this way. She lowered the window, but Max reached forward to stop it. You need to listen to me. Give me a chance to explain. It's too late. She tried to shut the window, but he wouldn't let her, so she turned away and left. He stood helplessly watching as she walked out of her bedroom. Then he remembered what Cassidy had mentioned. She's a runner, the type to flee. If she was having one of her freak out and escape sessions now, he needed to stop her before she left. He scrambled down the ladder and raced around the front of the house just in time to catch her before she made it to her car. Mila, don't do this again. Max ran after her. She jumped into the driver's side and started the engine. As she creeped forward, Max jumped in front of her vehicle, forcing her to slam on her brakes. Her car lurched to a stop, inches from his body. I won't let you leave this time. Max panted heavily from his sprint. He leaned forward, slamming his hands on the hood of her car. "You've already hit me once. You'll have to hit me again if you're going to leave." Mila rolled down her window. "I need you to move, Max." "I'm not moving until you agree to talk to me." His jaw was set. She beeped her horn to force Max to move. "If you don't get out of the way, I'm going to have to hit you." Max stood resolute and leaned closer to her windshield, speaking the words slowly. "Then hit me." Mila paused, her hands gripping the steering wheel, white-knuckled. "I can't." Her eyes beaded with tears. She tilted her head back to keep them from slipping down her cheeks. He had called her bluff. She might run from him, but she'd never intentionally hurt him. What he needed to do now was convince her of his love, or he would lose her forever. "Mila, will you stop and listen to me? I don't want anyone else. I never have. I want you. I want us." Something softened in her face. He was finally breaking through her walls. She wiped her eyes and looked at her lap. "When I saw you and Lexi at the gala, and the way you were looking at her, I thought I'd been a fool. How stupid was I to believe that you would choose me over her. I don't have feelings for Lexi. She said you confessed it to her." He sighed. "We went out on a few dates when I first moved here. For one foolish second, I blurted out that I was interested in her and then quickly regretted it. After spending time with her, I knew she was all wrong for me, but she wouldn't take no for an answer. What about tonight? When I saw you with her, it was like something broke in me. All the things from my past resurfaced, and I just wanted to run." Jake had scarred her before, and he'd only added to her pain. It was Lexi's last-ditch attempt to see if I was interested in being something more. I made it clear I wasn't. We're parting ways for good. Ask Cassidy. She was there when Lexi left. Max wanted to move closer to Mila, but he was still afraid she would drive away. He held his ground, resolute, his face pleading for another chance. "You're running from fear, but I want you to trust me on this. Can you look at me?" Her eyes slowly drifted toward his. "As soon as I saw you bolt tonight, I knew what was happening. I was so afraid I'd never get to explain. I thought you'd never come back, and I'd never get the chance to tell you I'm falling in love with you." Max said it so simple, so softly, he didn't offer the words carelessly. "Mila, I choose you." Without thinking, Mila took her foot off the brake and the car lurched forward. Max jumped back just in time before Mila hit the brakes again. "Oh, Max, I forgot to put the car in park. I'm so sorry." She jumped out of the car and into his arms, her whole body melting into his. He picked her up off the ground, arms encircling her waist, spinning her in a slow, dizzying circle. He caught his breath, adrenaline still surging through his body. "I never knew love would be so risky. Please, don't hit me if I say it again." Max smiled and slid his hands around her waist as he lowered her to the ground. "I promise, I won't." Then she reached up, cupped his face in her hands, and kissed his lips. She angled into him as he wrapped his arms around her back, his fingers trailing up her spine. He leaned into the embrace, letting it take him away, and then drew her closer, unable to resist. He kissed her jaw, her cheekbones, and then his fingers stroked her nape. After a few seconds, she pulled away and leaned her forehead to his. Her breath sounded like she couldn't believe this moment was real. "Max, you once said that confessing the truth makes a good plan B. So here goes nothing. She swallowed hard. I'm falling in love with you. I tried to convince myself I wasn't. I pushed you away, and yet you kept coming back for me. He touched her nose with his fingertip. I will always be there for you. She hugged him harder. I won't run away again. His eyebrows shot up. Promise? She nodded. I promise. Does this mean you'll go with me to the party tonight? He couldn't hide a smile as he wrapped her even tighter. As long as you don't mind spending it with me. I want to spend every New Year's Eve with you. I'd even get hit with your car again, if it would keep you in Wild Harbor. All you have to do to keep me in Wild Harbor is give me another kiss. Mila's smile was enough of an invitation. She didn't have to ask twice. In the distance, they could hear the clock tower bring in the new year and a crowd erupt in cheers. Before she could say more, Max's lips were on hers, his hands sliding down her back. He didn't notice the snow that had started to fall around them. All he knew was how right it felt to hold her in his arms. This time, he'd never let her go. Chapter 17, Max. New Year's Day. Max's chest pounded like a racehorse as he approached his dad's place. He grabbed Mila's hand for support. Before now, he would have felt the flush of shame as he showed her his shabby childhood home. But now, the embarrassment had worn off. She needed to see where he had come from without him covering up anything. He had shared all the ugly parts of his life with her, and she hadn't flinched once. If she could love him, fully knowing about his past, then there would be no shame between them. As they stepped into his dad's home, his mom welcomed Max and Mila with a hug. "You're both here. I was hoping you'd bring this young lady around before I left." Mom smiled, and the wrinkles around the edges of her eyes creased. Taylor and Caleb stayed to the side, exchanging glances. Without hesitating, Mila stepped forward. "Hi, I'm Mila." Caleb wrapped his arm around his girlfriend. "I'm Caleb, and this is Taylor." Taylor stepped forward with a bit of hesitation. "I love your necklace." Mila admired the emerald hanging from Taylor's neck. After working with customers for years, she always seemed to know the right thing to say. "Oh, thank you. It was a gift from Caleb." "It's lovely." Mila smiled. "He has good taste." It was all she needed to say before the two women connected. Taylor pulled Mila over to the side to talk about her wedding shop, while Max looked on in amazement. Relief drained from his body. He'd wanted this visit to go well, and thanks to Mila, it would. They seemed to have hit it off. Caleb glanced wondrously at them. Max shook his head. "I never would have imagined." In the living room, his father interrupted in a chest-rattling cough. Max tugged on Mila's elbow gently. "Sorry to interrupt, but we have one more person to meet." Taylor shook her head. "You know, Max, I never thought I'd instantly be taken with someone you brought home, but I can already see what a warm, lovely person Mila is." Mila put her hand up in protest. "Max would tell you I haven't always been warm or lovely. My first response to him was to run away, but he's always persistently chased me down." Caleb chuckled. "Someone to give him a run for his money, and you're perfect." His father's weary face lit up as soon as he spied Mila. Max took her hand and led her toward his father. Holding her hand would never get old. "Dad, this is Mila, the girl I was telling you about." Max couldn't stop smiling. Just seeing his dad's approval filled him with a golden glow. Mila's expression split wide open. "I didn't know you were talking about me with your family." "All good, I promise. They were giving me relationship advice, actually." Max hoped she wouldn't press for details. "Mila, finally." He wheezed as he took her hand and patted it. "Welcome to the family." He shifted to Max. "You didn't Give up. I took your advice." She wrapped her arm through his. "I didn't know your dad gave you advice." Max put his cheek against her hair. Father and son talk. His advice worked, and that's all that matters now. You're stuck with me. He kissed the top of her head. "There's no one I'd rather be stuck with." From the kitchen, his mother pulled out drawers as dishes clattered. "The roast is cooked and the potatoes are ready. Would someone put the rolls and jam on the table?" "I'll help," Taylor called, then pulled Caleb along to join her. Max squeezed Dad's hand. "Can we bring you a plate of food?" "Sure, and put extra jam on my roll. Okay." "You can't eat alone." Mila frowned and turned to Max. "Is it possible for us to eat here?" "Why not?" Max shrugged as he headed toward the kitchen. Mila wrapped her arm through his. "Is there a reason we're eating the exact same meal you brought me on Christmas?" "I may have dropped a hint. Mom made the jam fresh this morning." "What?" "You wooed me with that strawberry jam. My last defense fell when I ate that delicious spread." "Then my plan worked." He nuzzled his nose in her hair before his lips dropped to her ear. "I've saved the cheesecake for backup, in case the jam wasn't enough." She leaned into him, and he wrapped his arm around her waist and gave it a squeeze. "You've always been enough, Max Malone. Like a Christmas wish come true, even though I don't believe it's possible." "What do you believe, then?" He stopped her in the hall before they reached the kitchen and swung her toward him. "That every hard thing has led me to you, and it's better than I dreamed." "Better than strawberry jam?" She stood on her tiptoes and wrapped her arms around his neck, kissing his forehead. "Even better than that."
Epilogue. Mila. The following summer. As Mila stood outside the empty storefront on the corner of Main Street, she grabbed Max's hand. "You honestly don't mind if I'm just down the street from the French press?" "Mila, I love that you're buying the old Baker storefront. It's a beautiful, historic building. When the owner announced he was retiring, I knew it would be the perfect location to open your second shop." Mila examined the large display windows and old brick detailing the exterior. She could already imagine the wedding dresses styled perfectly in the window, the lights gleaming off the delicate folds as women stopped to admire the antique-inspired lace or the hand-stitched beading. So much had happened since Christmas. When she had returned to the city after the holidays, she and Max had agreed to see each other every weekend, as long as Hadley could cover the shop on Saturdays. Instead of all fun, no romance, their new agreement was take it slow, no rushing things. An easy yes. A few months later, she found herself leaving Hadley in charge of the shop more often so she could get away to see Max. Apparently, this was what taking it slow meant. Even Grams noticed the change. "Is it just me, or are you coming home more?" she teased, then elbowed Mila in the ribs. "Isn't it about time you opened a shop here?" Grams had helped her pay her overdue bills, so money was no longer an issue. That's when she decided to open a second shop and leave the Chicago location under Hadley's supervision. Grams was more than thrilled to loan her the money for the second store with the agreement that Mila would move back to Wild Harbor. Mila didn't even have to think twice. The Winter Festival had been such a success for the town that brides were already booking weddings for the following Christmas season. With year-round business, her new store could have an entirely different outcome than her first attempt. She'd signed the papers to buy the Baker store that day, and her mind whirled with plans for the future. She turned to admire the storefront again and exhaled deeply, dreaming of the beautiful dresses that would grace the window displays. "That's not the only surprise today," Max whispered in her ear, causing shivers to erupt down her arms. "Close your eyes." "Why?" She shut her eyes but was dying to peek at Max's surprise. "If I told you that, it wouldn't be a surprise. Now turn around slowly and open your eyes." When she spun around, Max was down on one knee, holding a velvet jewelry box in his hand. Now that you're coming home to Wild Harbor, will you marry me? I want to start a life with you here. There's no one else I'd rather grow old with than you." Mila covered her mouth with her hands and shook her head in disbelief. "I can't believe you're asking me here, now." "Are you going to answer me or leave me kneeling in the middle of the sidewalk?" Max teased. Yes, yes, of course I will." She threw her arms around him and nearly toppled him with kisses. He slid the elegant round diamond onto her finger. It shimmered in the light. "It's beautiful, Max. I can't believe you kept this secret from me." "My plan to get you back here worked." Max smiled as he wrapped his arms around her and kissed her forehead. "I knew that until you could open a shop here, you wouldn't say yes." I still would have said yes. Mila would never let her shop get in the way of a future with Max. It would have been a more difficult decision. I wanted it to be a no-brainer, a resounding yes. That's why I told you about this building before I asked you to marry me. You're a smart man, Max Malone, and you make me exceedingly happy. Speaking of weddings, I have a little surprise for you down at the cafe. My favorite caramel latte? Something even better. Mila took his hand as they strolled down the street. The summer sun warmed her shoulders as she wondered how she'd choose a wedding dress. She'd never asked Cassidy what she'd done with her old dress, and even now she didn't want to know. The memory of it had burned to ash as soon as she'd handed it to her friend. It had been a strange relief, actually. When Max opened the door for Mila, she was greeted by a large crowd shouting, "Surprise!" Mila stopped, unable to move forward. Max put his arm around her waist and whispered in her ear, "For you, my love." Joyous faces packed the room, people she had grown up with, neighbors, church family, school friends. "What's going on?" Mila asked incredulously. "How did you all know?" Diane stepped forward. "Max told us the news ahead of time, and we decided a celebration was in order. The whole town wanted to throw you an engagement party." "So you planned this for us?" Mila's eyes filled with tears at the news. So many impossible things had happened since she'd arrived home. This town was now her home again, and Max was going to be her husband. It had all come together in a way she had never expected. A ripple of emotion soared through her, the assurance of knowing this was the path she had waited for all along. Max wrapped his arms around her and whispered softly in her ear, "Is that everything you ever wanted?" His touch was like the first sweet sip of a drink she could never grow tired of. Mila lifted her face to his. "More than you can ever imagine." The end. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to this channel or follow me on Amazon at Grace Worthington. I have 3 series that I know you'll love, including 4 other books in the Wild Harbor series. I focus on sweet romance and sweet romantic comedies, and I would love to hear from you. Follow me at Grace Worthington Author on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, or go to my website at graceworthington.com.